I'm Jordan, your host, and the team, Corey, Edwin, and Udon. Today we'll be continuing with our thoughts on JRPGs and what they are to us. But before we start on this topic, let's go around and discuss what we did this week. Corey, how about you?
So I was playing some Final Fantasy VII. I have set up a capture card situation so that we can start getting some long form gameplay so that we can generate a different type of format to consume the podcast. So that'll be cool in near future, of course, through video and a fun way on like YouTube or other video platforms. Played some Helldivers. Me and Udon were playing Helldivers for a little bit, and then I went to a game symphony from Video Games Live with Edwin, my wife, and a couple friends. That was like 2.5 hours away, so that was a really fun trip. I'm pretty exhausted. We got back this morning, and we were hanging out till like 2 a.m. last night, and we had to get up to check out of the hotel at 9-ish. I was up at 9 getting ready and everything, but we left at about 11 to go to Waffle House and prepare for our long drive back home. Edwin, I suppose, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, that symphony was really cool. There was like a lot of like really popular games on there, though there were like some weird additions to it. I feel like the weirdest one was probably the Tetris one, because for some reason they decided to make it a German opera, which was kind of weird. Like the opera was she was good at it, but it's like it was just a weird like moment in that whole symphony, because
Tetris is like the birthplace of video games, and it's a Russian game, so I mean it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so it was like that was kind of weird, but everything else was like pretty spot on. They got like a bunch of games that I liked, and so besides the symphony, like before that, I did try out my own demo while I was trying to download Dead Space Remake that Udon said before. It was on Game Pass, and I had it for a while. So like I tried to download that, and I saw in the bottom corner like an advertisement for a demo, and I thought it was something else. I thought it was a new game that Disney like dropped $1 billion on Epic Games to make, because like the advertisement for it was like all super bright and colorful, kind of like a Disney film. So that's what I thought it was, but apparently it turned out to be a neat like farming adventure simulator, kind of like.
Are you kind of talking about Disney Dreamscape Valley or whatever the fuck?
No, it's like an indie game that was like $25. Like the demo dropped like 2 days before the game actually released, so I like pre-ordered it an hour before it released at noon. It was kind of funny, but like the game is like Slime Rancher. If you ever played that, or like Minecraft.
I play the shit out of that. I play 100% at Slime Rancher.
Yeah, that game was fun.
I fucking love that game.
I fucking love it.
But it's kind of like that, but like not ranching animals, but it's more farming, and you gotta like defend your farm from like invaders on that new planet. You're trying to like colonize and make food and everything to make it the new Earth.
Are you talking about Lightyear Frontier or something?
Yep, it's Lightyear Frontier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like the meantime,
I tried the demo of that.
The robot.
Yeah, I liked the concept. I didn't really care for much for the gameplay. At least the demo didn't grip me, because I wasn't really like. I mean, farming games as a whole, it's like, yeah, you just kind of make your own fun kind of thing, take things at your own pace, but I still need some kind of like overarching goal to kind of work towards, because when I played the demo, it was just kind of like, yeah, just farm. It's like I'm not even like growing anything. I'm growing things to make oil to continue up, because the gimmick of the game is like you have a giant farming mech that you use to do farming and stuff, which is cool. It controls nice, but at least the demo didn't really give me anything other than like, yeah, just live, I guess, because even like Stardew gives you the community center, and a lot of Harvest Moon games, it's always like help the harvest goddess or whatever the fuck, or restore the town, shit like that. Whereas when I played that game, it was just kind of like, yeah, do whatever. And I'm like, it's a bit too open ended for me. I need some kind of goal.
It does have a very Fortnite look to it.
Yeah, it's very nice
looking.
looking.
Through screenshots, yeah, it's very like it's nice saturated colors, very bright. It's pleasant looking. It's not bleak.
Yeah.
Well, the demo was like limited in the area, but the main objective of Lightyear Frontier is pretty much sustain yourself and upgrade your suit and your little home area, because you have like a coziness level. So like the better the coziness, the more perks you get when you wake up in the morning.
I also have a coziness level.
But like the main objective, I'm assuming, I haven't played that much since I bought it, because like almost immediately when I finished the demo, I immediately pre-ordered. Like,
you know, it's funny.
before.
You say you bought it, but if you still have Game Pass, it's on Game Pass.
Yeah, I didn't know that. It's like, it was like, oh, on Game Pass.
Oh.
Like, fuck, I already bought it.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Handing these out for free.
Yeah.
but like the main objective of it is, well, and like that's why I was comparing it to Slime Rancher, because while you're doing like the main objective of like farming or ranching, in this case it would just be farming. I haven't like ranched any animals. I just feed the random wildlife because they give you bonuses too. But like the main objective is to find out what your so-called planet neighbors are, because they left like a bunch of technological ruins and all that. And then the only way to get further and to unlock the ruins even more is to like clean up the planet, because there's like some strange toxic fluid all over the planet. So you got to like clean that up, and then eventually you'll get like more areas to gain resources, and like the ruins will open up more for you because you've cleared out the area.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question for you. Are you playing your Game Pass through like your PC, or are you actually playing Game Pass through like your Xbox?
I'm playing through the Xbox. I just find it more comfortable than just playing on the computer.
PC Game Pass and console Game Pass are like two different things.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I know that
I just have like a trial for Ultimate, so I can use both if I wanted to.
Yeah, Ultimate gives you both, but you have the option to do like either or as well.
Okay, because the ROG Ally has the Game Pass app, but I don't know if they're like, the same.
It's largely the same library. Basically, if it can go on the PC, it's going to be on the PC. Whereas the PC, both have like exclusives on them, not from any particular reason, but like the PC Game Pass obviously has like a lot more RTSs and stuff, or like more indie RTSs you might not have seen. If you have Ultimate, you also have EA Play, so you get all the Command and Conquers, which you can't get on console. Then you can get like Fallout 1 and 2, which you can't get on console. And then like there's also like, Elder Scrolls Arena and Redguard and shit like that you can't get on console and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's like two different things. I didn't know. I thought it was just like the gold, like for internet access, and then just Ultimate. Because like way before I didn't have like the option. It was like, oh, just console, Game Pass, and then PC. But the only reason I got Ultimate was because you mentioned, well, before that we got it because I was trying to wait for the Master Chief Collection to go on sale for $10. So it's like, I'm not paying the same game full price when I already own it on the Xbox, and I'm too stingy to share it on PC. Well, I already own it in my own account.
Yeah, to be fair, you get a lot more content than just CE when you get the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah, but I only got it for that. I was like, oh, I got another trial. But besides that, the only reason I was using it was because you mentioned the Dead Space remake was on there, and I downloaded that. And you were right. That is completely different from the original game. It's been very fun so far.
Good. Yeah.
It is amazing.
And so far, of multiple episodes we've done, we've said nothing but good things about that game.
Yeah, I honestly can't think of a bad thing to say
I think
about
it comes up at least once every episode.
Because it's such a good example of a modern game that did shit right.
Yeah.
And a remake that made it even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could say the same for Demon's Souls' remake, but, I don't want to really go too much into a Souls game when it's not the Souls episode, but, like, it's just so pretty, That's the same thing with Dead Space. Like, it's just so pretty. Like, you're getting your ass kicked, but you're like, wow, it's so nice.
This blood looks amazing. My blood.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I did so far. But what have you done, Udon?
Well, before and after last episode, I actually went back. A while back, they not re-released but remade Pokemon Mystery Dungeon on the on a Switch, which is basically it was a remake of the first Mystery Dungeon, Red and Blue. And I had bought it because I'm a huge Pokemon Mystery Dungeon fan.
That's the one with the talking ones, talking Pokemon.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my big thing about it was that like I wasn't crazy about the style change because it went from a pixel style to like 3D with this like it not a bad looking like painted art style for the backgrounds. I don't know, it looked strange to me, and the Pokemon looked like this weird painted kind of texture. And I wasn't really vibing with it. And plus, they made a lot of changes to the game that seemed to make it way easier than it used to be. Like your Pokemon basically starting out with way more moves and way more powerful moves than it ever did in the original. Because in the original, when you started out, it would go by basic rules where it's like, oh, you're Cyndaquil, so you start out with Tackle and Growl. Good luck, fucker. And you just level up and get your basic level up moveset. But then like now it's like you get Cyndaquil, and it's like, all right, you have let's see, Flame Spin, Tackle, Takedown, and Fire Spin. It's like, what the fuck? This is at like level 1. You're just throwing them out there. Like Trico has like Dragon Breath and shit like that. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Does Trico even learn Dragon Breath?
He can learn Dragon Breath. It's just like it's the same thing as if you started out in a regular Pokemon game with your level 5 Trico, and he knows like Dragon's Breath, Steel Tail, Bullet Seed, and fucking Growl or some shit. You know, he has like a full arsenal when you're supposed to have to work for that shit.
Came right over.
So I gave it up for a while, but then during the week I gave it another shot, and I played as Meowth since his moveset seemed to be the least overpowered. And I was starting to like it because I started realizing the shit they did to it that made it even better. Because like in the last game, you can have like up to 3 Pokemon that you could recruit into a dungeon at any one time. They have like massively upgraded that to where you're like you could recruit like up to like something like 8 Pokemon in a dungeon at one time. You can have like a mini army with you, which is neat. And not to harp on it too long, but I finally started getting into it after having put it off for a while. After I kind of wrote it off as being kind of like a shit remake, but now I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. And then aside from that, again, lapsing back into my gacha addiction with Fate Go, Pokemon Masters, Blue Archive, Niket, and now I got my account back for Konosuba Fantastic Days, so I'm playing like 5 gacha games on my phone right now. And I only pay for one of them. I have a rule. I don't spend the money on anything but Fate. But, and then, other than that, I'm still playing Cyberpunk and still enjoying that immensely, especially because my Gorilla Arms build keeps getting better and better to the point where I'm just picking people up and using them as projectiles now. It's hilarious. It's literally just like my whole moveset is just like, I'm going to take a motherfucker and beat another motherfucker with him. What'd you do, Jordan? Besides kill us a lot on Helldivers.
Well, I was gonna jump into that, but it was a lot of accidents apparently on my part, just trying out new things like the Tesla Tower, which ended up being like the worst mistake ever because I did not know how much it really enjoyed killing teammates rather than the fucking enemies. But I guess it was something to live with, I guess, for the time being. I also got to experience what it was like to play with a level 50 player. Did that yesterday, and I was like, okay, maybe not be too bad.
Max top 25.
I don't know. It's the guy was 50. I literally saw it, and I don't know if he unlocked something that I just wasn't aware of, but it looked like the dude could throw down the 500 kilogram bomb at like any time he felt like it. It just was not a normal size bomb that would go off. He would just chuck it, and you're like, okay. And then it would just be like a giant mushroom cloud. And you just throw that shit every time. And I'm like, okay, I could have swore it said one-time use. What the hell's going on? So he would just run through this level, and we just obviously were just following him around every time. You just mushroom cloud. How about over this mushroom cloud? And he just fucking clears the whole fucking map. And I'm like, okay. And then he just dips like halfway through. I was like, I don't know if he was like just trying to like showboat, like, look at this shit, you know, look what I figured out, you know, or whatever. But it was
It might have been for a quest.
Games like that can actually backfire because like that reminds me of when I played Warframe a lot. Even PvE games, if you get it's nice. Don't get me wrong, it's nice being carried sometimes, especially if you don't really feel like trying. But then you get into matches with players that have such fucking gear and shit that they're playing the game for you, and the games turns into just trying to catch up to run with them because of how fast they're clearing the content. And it's just like, am I even playing the game, or am I just playing like fucking catch up? Because this isn't fun, because I don't get a chance to play because they're just blowing everything up as soon as it becomes on screen.
Yeah, no, it felt like literally I was just running right behind somebody the whole time and just like, oh, look at that. Look at that. Like I had more time to just look at the visuals because I wasn't doing shit. I was just watching somebody massacre everything on the fucking map. And all I could just do was be like, okay, well, he cleared that place. Let's go to the next spot. And it was, yeah, it basically lost its fun at that point. I was like, okay. And then he, like I said, left halfway through, so I was like, okay, now I can get back to enjoying the game again, because literally it was just a visual thing the whole time. But we got through that, and I was like, well, then I guess there's obviously something that's going to be available later on, or maybe I'm just missing something. I don't know, but it did not look like a normal sized bomb. It looked fucking massive, and he just did it constantly. So I was like, okay, that's crazy. And then jumped into the Final Fantasy Rebirth again. I've been going about it a little bit differently. I've been trying to hit up every single side mission there is, kind of just like I said, just trying to lengthen the game more. Playing Queen's Blood, I came across a really cool part. Now, I know some people might not like it. Obviously, it's kind of bringing back those painful memories of polygons, but it was kind of cool where you're basically redoing the first Final Fantasy remake, where you're doing a fortress game, kind of where you got 3 eagles on each side of the board, and you're basically trying to defeat the other side's birds to win the game. But in doing so, you're actually polygons, and they actually have a story to it, which is kind of funny, and it's literally like this crazy like boss or commander or whatever that's leading the group, and these soldiers are behind him the whole time, like saying he's our boss, he's got the ideas. But this guy is just literally just pointing his finger and say, run to that battle. And he just runs at it, but he doesn't like strategize. But his troops are behind him. And one of them obviously is like, we love the guy, but I think you guys could help us out by trying to win. And he's just constantly trying to get himself into trouble, and you're trying to get him out of it. But the reason why you're doing all this is because there is like a hidden artifact that for some weird reason is appearing in these game boards that you find across the maps. And when you touch the game board, it sucks you into the game, and now you are a part of that game and you're playing it through. And so each level you're defeating the boss or that map, and then it disappears, and then it appears somewhere else on the map, and then you're constantly just basically playing through the story within that mini board. And I thought that was kind of neat because it didn't look like horrible looking polygons. They actually looked really polished, and it looked doable. Like obviously you saw blocks for hands and such, but it was kind of funny. I thought it was kind of cute that they had all that stuff going on for it. But I also just came across Yuffie. That was kind of a painful thing for me to see, because literally it's like you go through that DLC and you're playing as Yuffie. She's this badass flipping around throwing this giant fucking boomerang looking thing. And then the bitch is on a boat, and then you come across and she's getting ready to get eaten by a fish or some looking dragon looking thing in the water. You're like, what the fuck is she doing out there? And I have to go and bail her ass out. And then it's like, okay, so now I'm confused. This like lady was like kicking ass all over the place in the DLC. Now it's like she's on a boat and she can't fucking get herself out of this bullshit predicament. And now she's trying to get us to do shit for her. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird, but that's basically all I had. I got to that point and I was like, okay, I really hope it gets better at this point, but it was kind of shitty as that intro to her. But, it's Final Fantasy, whatever.
Yeah, speaking of Final Fantasy, it was actually something I didn't dig too much into it, but yesterday I do Dungeons and Dragons every Saturday, so I'm waiting for my players to show up. I'm in my house on my retro consoles, and I decided to start playing the original Final Fantasy VII, which I was starting to I started with a little bit of Metroid Prime, which I also have never touched, and I was enjoying that as well. But then I started with Final Fantasy VII, the original, and I was enjoying it so far. I especially like it was kind of funny because ironically reminded me of Octopath Traveler, how like the models are 3D, but all the backgrounds are like these 2D kind of like painted, hand-drawn looking things, unless they're just like pre-rendered like 3D models that are just like static images essentially. I don't know which one it is, but either way, looks really nice.
Yeah,
I like it anyways.
oh, yeah. No,
The original Final Fantasy or the original
Yeah,
Final Fantasy
for a
7?
retro game, yeah.
yeah, the original.
Because I like all the backgrounds.
Oh yeah, I liked I played the Game Boy Advance one.
Mm-hmm.
And that one like it's really
I meant the
cool.
original Final Fantasy 7.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, yeah, I do like I remember seeing the PC version of the original Final Fantasy 7 like on the shelf at a store, but like a long ass time ago obviously, but yeah, the pre-render backgrounds is like super cool. I that's such a staple from like earlier RPGs on like PS1 and stuff, so it's crazy. I wish I could see how they set those up like
Yeah.
before they like lined it, because it's Resident Evil, right? Resident Evil 1 is pre-rendered backgrounds in that
Yeah,
mansion,
because
so
it's like they have to like set it up, and they're like, all right, the hitboxes are roughly here, you know.
yeah.
But speaking of, what other kinds of things in JRPGs do we like?
Oh yeah,
Besides
anyone
like
jump
really
into
cool
the poll?
backgrounds.
Yeah, so our polls was, what is your favorite thing about JRPGs? We had A, mini games, B, characters, C, story, D, turn-based, or E, animation. Winner was characters. What do you guys think?
Yep, it passes, because as much as I like story, if a game or book or movie, whatever have you, as long as the characters remain in character and do things that they would do, despite how fucking stupid a story may be, full of plot holes, I'm willing to overlook them as long as the character interactions and stuff are very enjoyable.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're the driving point of the story, right? So it's like they
Yeah.
are the ones experiencing the story, and you're guiding them through it. And so if they're kind of crappy, it's like, well, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
hate all of them. So being with them this entire time is unenjoyable.
Right.
Kind of the reason I started playing Dragon's Dogma, the original, by the way. I don't know anything about the second one, but I'm pretty sure it carries us over. Is the stupid ass pawn system. Fucking Capcom literally is like, we didn't feel like writing you companions, so we just wrote in this system that you can just do what the fuck ever. We don't care. Like, kind of pissed me off, cheating me out of characters to enjoy.
Yeah, no, those characters, man, they literally, if they do well enough, yeah, you can definitely see yourself getting attached to them, and obviously going through a really good story that just adds on to the matter of it being a really good game. I mean, how depth they go through it obviously is going to be different amongst each other, but those games, I mean, JRPGs, they usually do really well with stories, and I do like a lot of the characters in some of them, so.
I mean, I feel like some of them do well with stories, even put under a little bit of a microscope and taking your nostalgia glasses off. You're going to very quickly realize a lot of your stories are fucking stupid. At least a little bit.
Yeah, most RPG, or most of the JRPGs too, they all have the same story if you really think about it.
Yeah, power of friendship.
Find a cat,
some way,
like
shape,
God.
Yeah, find cat, then kill God. Because it's like, it's not a JRPG in particular, but so I'll stay on topic then. I'll save Mass Effect for some other time. But because I like Persona a lot. Persona is my favorite JRPG series, and again, the main reason I like it a lot is because of the characters, and also that was another slight thing I did, I guess, this week was I did get a lot more into the Persona 3 Reloaded to kind of like concretely identify why I still like it. I'm just not vibing with this one as much as I would say Persona 4 or 5. Part of that is having to do with the characters, but I massively enjoy the characters in Persona. They carry through the entire game, especially Persona 5. I love the characters so much because as much as I love Persona 5, upon a replay of that game, I'm like, man, this story's kind of stupid. Like, there's so many times when I'm like, nah, y'all are caught. It's over. Y'all are caught. Because, like, a big sticking point in Persona 5, you're like Phantom Thieves. Again, you're like you're like this Robin Hood-esque gang who's doing bad things for good reasons, essentially. And you're trying to keep yourself secret when one of the fucking hiding places you had was just in the middle of a fucking busy-ass subway station. And the logic there is that, oh, everyone's going through a fucking subway. They're minding their own business. Who's going to pay attention to a bunch of high schoolers talking about shit in the corner? It's like, I'm sorry, but the high school, like, I have existed within the world before, and everyone has unintentionally eavesdropped on someone's conversation just out of boredom at some point, or just because they heard something interesting. If you're talking about, how you're infiltrating the fucking mirror dimension to change the mind of the fucking CEO so he doesn't like shut down the old folks home or whatever the fuck, and how you're responsible for it, and how you're responsible for all this other shit that's been happening on the news for like the last couple months, people are gonna take notice of that like easily.
Dude, did you hear
like
that
you guys
shit?
have got like you guys have been caught 7 times over already. It's not even funny. But
yeah, and I played Persona 4, but that was a long time ago, and that was also kind of a weird one. I didn't finish it, of course, but it was a weird story how it started off. People, like, a fog would come through, and then people were disappearing, and then they ended up being dead. It was weird shit, but it was some weird stories that those thing is. I can only assume 3 and 5 had some crazy stuff too as well.
yeah, Persona 4 had the buffer of their story was like a small town thing, and the things that those characters were going through were like under the radar. Like, no one, like, they weren't under a microscope. They were doing what they were doing basically of their own accord, with no one trying to stop them other than the antagonist. But like in Persona 5, the world is against you. Like, the Phantom Thieves are a known entity within the world. You're on the news all the time. They just don't know who you are. So people are actively looking for you and watching you, which means you had to do this utmost discretion, but you're just loudly talking about how you're the Phantom Thieves in the middle of a fucking subway station. Just like,
It's really stupid.
it is stupid, and I love that game still, but it's fucking dumb. Like, those guys, they were caught so many times over. Whereas in Persona 4, you're just trying to catch a murderer in a small town where the police really have no idea what's going on, because they have like the same powers you do, essentially, to go into like this other dimension to kill people. So they leave no trace and shit like that. And you're trying to catch them for your own purposes, because they finally get a couple people close to you and your companions. So it's a lot less high stakes. The point isn't to get caught; it's just to catch the antagonist. So,
Well, I know like stories across JRPGs become more I guess like they're trying to have their own identity as we get into more modern RPGs, rather than like older ones who used to follow like that same format of like, oh, we gotta stop the world from ending,
they kind of get really convoluted sometimes in a bad way. Like, they can just have too much stuff going on all at once.
Yeah, because I mean,
I feel like
that's true. Yes, it's really busy.
I feel like that's kind of how I felt about Xenoblade, to be honest. Like, I was not I could not keep my head wrapped around the lore enough to understand what was going on and like what I was doing ever in Xenoblade 2. And but the characters were all really good, so the characters kept me throughout the entire thing. But it's like, why am I killing God? I don't know.
You're just kind of like, yeah, man, totally.
Yeah, whatever. What you said. Let's go.
I remember. Let's go.
You would
Bet.
do.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, the because like older games, like the classic Final Fantasies, there's like, oh, we're the Crystal Warriors, and we have to stop the evil king from doing evil king shit. It's like, that's not really complicated, and the game takes like 30 hours to get through. So it's just they don't have a lot of time to really guide you into like a overarching story. Like Chrono Triggers is not necessarily complicated, but
it has time travel.
It's more
time travel.
But it's more fun. There's like more locations. Like your journey is a little bit more like exciting than like the original Final Fantasy's journey, where it was like just an overworld map, and you're just, where's that damn cave at? Because games don't repeat themselves, and he told me one time, and I wasn't paying attention.
Where's that cave, bitch? Bitch with the club.
There's
the
a
frog.
cave to the east. You must go there and find the princess. And you're like,
is that the fault of Final Fantasy though, or is that the fault of retro games where you take a break for a week and you're like, fuck, what was I doing?
Yeah, no, I love that Dragon Quest had that like last time, and it just like catches you up on what you were doing, because it's like, oh my god, thank you for this. Because if it got to a point where like I would play games like Star Ocean and stuff, and I would save if I knew I was like, I'm getting pretty tired, or like I got something to do in like about 30 minutes or something. and I was going to a new town, I would save before I walked in that town, specifically because I know the game will remind me what I'm supposed to do as soon as I walk in there. And they go like, wow, this town's so crazy. Oh, we should go talk to the library because that was the whole purpose of us coming here. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. Because, there isn't a lot of hand-holding in classic games, so there's no markers and all that other shit all over the map.
Yeah, people shit on the fucking Skyrim quest markers, but quite frankly, I miss those sometimes because I just want to be able to spawn into a game. It's like, what am I doing? Whatever, go towards the marker. That was what I was doing, I guess.
Oh, there's no quest log. Crap.
Yeah.
But and of course there's got to be a better balance of like UI and chaos. It's just like stop marking everything.
See, I feel like
you have new indicators on your map because you found a flower you've never seen before. It's like I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go to that bestiary thing, find the item, uncheck it because all of the like notification labels on stuff drive me crazy. And it's like 100 notifications because you fought a monster you've never seen and you forgot to check it like 3 hours ago.
Look
and it's
at the
still
codex. There. Look at the fucking codex. Why aren't you looking at the codex?
You check the codex and then it doesn't tell you anything because you didn't scan the enemy when you saw it. So it's like you saw this enemy, you just don't know what they do. I'm like,
thanks. Yeah.
But like if you walked into a town, go through the intro stuff, save at the end, and then turn it off. Then when you load up, you're like, wait, why was I here again? Nobody, you got like the one random NPC guy who's just dancing in the street, and you talk to him. He's like, "I love dancing," and you're like, "That has nothing to do with anything."
Yeah, because you're like, I have no quest log. There's nothing I can look at. Time to talk to every NPC and try everything with everything.
Then, the one guy who's at the shopkeeper thing, looking in the corner, and he's like, "Man, I sure hope the king doesn't die of that sickness that required that item that needed to be found by some group of people that were supposedly bringing it here."
Yeah.
Check your inventory. You're like, oh, it's me. Oh, I'm supposed to save the key. Hold on. Like, I know what I'm doing. Thanks, NPC 5.
Those guys sound really lazy, huh? I hope you find them.
Yeah.
So the Dragon Quest games, are any of those actually, they play like a story continuous, or are they actually separate from each other, kind of like the Final Fantasy thing that we talked about?
I believe it's the similar situation of Final Fantasy where they kind of tell their own unique stories. It's just like the enemy designs and like movesets kind of carry across all the games. So like, it's familiar monsters, familiar world, but a new experience.
It's kind of funny. I have the same exact experience I have with Final Fantasy as what I have with Dragon Quest. I've only played and enjoyed a spin-off, and I've never really engaged with the main series. I've only ever really liked Dragon Quest Builders. Didn't play the second one, just the first one.
The Minecraft
that was the only
one?
Yeah, because I was so interested. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I played it, and I was actually having a lot of fun with it. The story mode was like weirdly engaging.
I think we have Dragon Quest Heroes, which is also like one of those Dynasty Warrior style games.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, if you wanted to try every hero from all the other games,
I'd just play Smash Brothers.
Yeah. There you
there's
go.
Also, I think there's 2 of them, but the graphics and stuff are pretty cool. So, I mean, if you like that art style on, obviously that play style, which those games are kind of fun to just turn your mind off and just slam the square button a lot.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I have a
Dynasty Warriors is like his own fucking genre. Yeah, you bought it when I was there with you.
Yeah,
and that bravest man in the kingdom rushed Guts from like 800 yards away.
Yeah, I'm going to get him. Like, bro, you see how big that sword is? Why are you running over there? And then, what is it? Another one I have like that is the Attack on Titan one.
The Attack on Titan one was so okay. Disclaimer: I don't really care for Attack on Titan as an IP. Fucking sue me. But I really like the game. The game is really fun.
Yeah,
it's so much fun to swing around.
Yeah,
interesting.
And it's cool how those spin-off games like do that because they can have some really bangers. But Final Fantasy VII has had so many spin-offs, and I'm not sure that I think Dirge of Cerberus is one that's like a lot of people do enjoy. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if that's ever going to get a remake, but they did a battle royale late last year or something and turned all the servers off. I don't even know if it lasted like a full year, but it was like Project Soldier or something, and it was a battle royale set in Final Fantasy VII, and it's just like, no, who asked for this?
Yeah,
that's not why we like. That's not why we like Final Fantasy VII. Like, it's because of the cool sword and spiky hair and the anime aesthetics.
Well, I guess that's a fun thing that's a segue into something. I mean, do we enjoy RPGs or JRPGs rather, because they do have this like anime, like most of them anyways, have like this either anime art style or like the aesthetic of things being like really bombastic, dudes having huge swords or crazy hair and stuff like that, and the typical like anime/Japanese humor or tropes in it. Like, do any of us here go looking in JRPGs specifically for that?
I mean, it definitely catches my eye if I see like, if they're not going with the whimsical like cover art of the game. I know that I think Ni no Kuni and the Wrath of the White Witch is like a white cover with like, the filigree logo kind of thing. But then, some other games like I know what Dragon Quest is when I see it because it's like the 11th one, but or when it was showing you characters and stuff, it would be like, like Breath of Fire 4 has a really cool case art, and that would, make me walk over and pick it up because I'm like, oh, those characters look cool. And that would be a lot, especially since once games started getting put behind glass, the only thing you could see is the cover. So like, I would look for games that had cool characters on it because it's like, if it looks like a character I think is cool, then I'll probably want to, play it. And I'm 14 when I'm looking at this stuff, but I mean that's just about as simple as it gets. Is the characters do kind of make me want to play it, that aesthetic at least, because it was what I enjoyed watching.
Yeah, and that was the same thing. It was something that I found was as comfortable as I just got used to. And if you just kind of trying to think about the kind of design of what they have, they're usually very colorful or kind of weird in how they're actually being placed. Sometimes you look at the sense of how it's supposed to come together, and it doesn't really make sense. I mean, if you look at Cloud's clothes, it's kind of weird, and if you see Tifa's clothes, it looks kind of weird as well. It's like, how is it supposed to protect you? Less clothing and supposedly makes you look awesome. I guess I'm good with that.
Yep.
I mean, it's the type of design, It's just something that I've been around for a long time, and if it looks normal, then obviously I'm just not interested. Somebody just has flat hair, crew cut, and they just look like normal clothes on. I don't really have
character of Final Fantasy Paradise or something, Strangers of Paradise.
Yeah, I just don't have any interest in it. It's something that's got to be very weird or just out of the ordinary of clothing. And obviously, if you saw a normal person wearing it, you'd think they were crazy. But just for some weird reason, seeing that in JRPGs, it's a normal thing, and it's something that I've always enjoyed. So
yeah, I mean, more belts. You need more belts on your character.
More belts, bigger swords, bigger tits.
I mean,
bring on the tits.
Kingdom Hearts 2 has like a really cool cover. Like that's, Disney characters aside, of course, like the character or the art style for it, like, is cool. Plus, it's the second one, so I kind of already know what it's going to be. But like Kingdom Hearts 1 has an equally awesome cover. And it's like, oh man, that looks cool. Like, I want to play that. Like, I'm curious.
Yeah, you look at Sephiroth. I mean, look how much leather that guy's wearing. I hope he doesn't have to take
man,
a piss. He's got a lot of shit to take off, where he's going to go to actually be able to take a nice, decent nap. He's covered in fucking shit with belts on it.
He must be a big fan of The Matrix. Yeah, well, there's other games too, like Lunar. Like, I'm a really big fan of like Lunar Silver Star Story. The characters of that one, they have like that anime aesthetic, but they're look like Western fantasy characters. Like he's like it's an anime character, but he's wearing like knight gear.
Yeah,
and it's not like a crazy giant sword, but he looks like a knight. And like there's I love this aesthetic of like 90s like anime villains with gigantic shoulder pads.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I know it's the silhouette of like making them like imposing, but I'm like, it looks so fucking cool. And like so like seeing those characters on like the Lunar stuff, it's like, yeah, I really want to play whatever that is. And but it's so cool because of it's not your typical like anime character stuff. Like when you see Kingdom Hearts and stuff, and like that's the belts, the shoes, the crazy spiky hair. But when you look at Lunar and you're like, oh, this looks like a like an adventure, and that's kind of what I liked about that style.
Well, it's a lot easier to just like see if a game is to your liking now, but you can just look up like gameplay on the internet. Because before, like didn't have YouTube to like look up gameplay or anything like that. So you would just go to the store and then judge it by the cover, by just how it looks, and then just look at the back for like screenshots and like a synopsis of the game. That's pretty much what I would do if they didn't have like the manual on the inside to get like more in depth. But like judging it by the cover would be a really easy thing for Dragon Quest, because like, oh, it looks like Dragon Ball Z, so it looks familiar. But it looks equally as cool on its own. But because for like Kingdom Hearts, I never actually saw Kingdom Hearts like in the store when I first like actually got it. I saw someone playing it, and then I just saw the gameplay. I was like, what is that? I want it. And then I immediately started looking for it for like a month after. It was like I didn't know what it was called, and then I just saw someone else playing it. I was like, what is that? I need to know. I've been looking for this for months. And then now it's like one of my favorite games I've ever played. But the first game does not live up very well.
I think at least I don't speak for everyone here, but I speak for myself when I say that I generally tend to enjoy the art styles more of Japanese artists more than Western art styles when it comes to video games. That rule isn't concrete at all. Obviously, I do enjoy Western art styles occasionally. And to some people, a lot of what JRPGs, different art styles, they're just all going to write it off. It's like, oh, it's all anime. It's just anime art style. When people who've played it and looked a bit closer at it obviously know better, because Dragon Quest doesn't look like Persona, doesn't look like fucking Danganronpa, doesn't look like fucking what's another one? Fucking Xenoblade or Grand Blue Fantasy. Like they all have this like subtle anime aesthetic. Well, subtle, some more subtle than others. But like, you know, the typical tropes of big eye, crazy hair, colorful hair, really pretty women, dudes with giant swords. And so I just enjoy that a lot. Whereas like, again, even like nowadays more than ever, it's kind of hard to find that stuff with like Western things. Like I think the last game I played that I generally like really enjoyed the art style and how they did everything was God of War Ragnarok. But
yeah, I noticed that. I noticed like a split between like JRPGs, like how good they are, and like the Western RPGs. Like the more colorful and vibrant a JRPG is, it tends to be a better game, because like your Unicorn Overlord, like it's really colorful and really detailed, looks super nice, and then you love that game. And then also on the Western side, it's like, oh, Ghost of Tsushima, and then God of War is like, this looks so dark and serious, and then they're like the greatest games so far.
Yeah, like I said, it's not a rule, but I'm genuinely more attracted to that art style than more. I mean,
there's a handful of these like old school JRPGs that have that visual style that like draws you in, and it's super misleading because when you play it, you're like, oh my god, this sucks. Because for me, like
Quest 64.
Oh yeah, God. I have plenty of gripes for that. I know. My thing is I didn't understand what the camera was doing, because every fight that you get in, because the matches, it takes place on the field where you fight, which is kind of cool. That was like a little bit revolutionary thing. It's like, hey, look, you're fighting on the map of these creatures, and so you're moving in 3D space, and the camera's following you. And then when the fight's over, the camera moves to realign, and I didn't realize that it's pointing the direction that you were going when you first started this fight, since you've been moving all over the place. But it comes off so like disorienting that like I ended up like walking back to the same town I just left like every single time that I would get in a battle, because I'm like, I guess this is the way I was going. But that also is a problem because of like the limitations of the console that it was on, and them not being able to like set dress things properly.
Young man, you've come back to town 6 times.
Your main character's name, I think, is Brian or something like that. They're like, dang it, Brian, get out there. And he's like, I tried, but there's not enough trees for me to like, there's no landmarks. I don't know if I'm going the right way or not.
I don't know if this is a JRPG thing. I just feel like it happens to me in JRPGs more often than not, but especially for more retro ones. You enter a room, and because of how the new camera's placed, what you perceive as moving forward is actually going to cause your character to walk backwards out of the same door and through the loading screen again. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And you're like, son of a bitch.
That happens
Yeah, that
in
happens.
Resident Evil and Devil May Cry all the time.
Yeah, like I said, it's not a JRPG exclusive thing. Just for me personally, I feel like that happens more in JRPGs than anything else.
The locked cameras, and then you're like, oh, fuck, I ran out of the room. Especially on PlayStation 1 games, that's so terrible because if you eat a loading screen and then you're like, it loads and you right back out the door again, you're like, shit, and then you have to sit in the loading screen again just to do it again.
Yeah, I bring it up because I literally just did that playing the Final Fantasy VII on the PS1 in the really early game. Like, all right, get out of the elevator and get out, and I walk immediately back. And I'm like, God damn it!
Something I can appreciate from original Final Fantasy and their pre-rendered background stuff is that there's a button that turns on, I think, this is a door icon. Because it's like, if you don't know where the exit is, it's kind of like hiding in plain sight because everything looks really nice except for you. And
it's the weakness of the background thing, because sometimes it's like, can I go through there? I don't know if I can go through there. Is that even something I can walk? Is that a door? And you just kind of like just smash your face against every fucking wall you see until you finally just go through it.
Well, it's kind of the thing that I liked about Grandia, and I mentioned that game in the last when we first started talking about JRPGs. Is Grandia is a full 3D environment on a PlayStation 1 game, and it's really cool because like you really feel like you're in the world. You can rotate the camera when you're there, and then they have little stupid Easter egg things like a trash can. If you walk into it, the trash can kind of shakes and makes a noise, and so it's like the world feels more alive than the other games where it's like a really nice looking picture. And
I'm sorry, I just picture you playing the game and the trash can rattles and you're like, this game's so alive.
There's probably rats in there living their own life. It's got there's like a rat brood and they're having a good time. No, but it's it's everything. Like when you're out in the map, like just in a new dungeon area, there'll be like a little flower like thing, or like you walk by like a geyser and it just kind of goes off or something. But it doesn't go off every time you walk by, so it has these random like environmental events that take place in every single place you go. And it might not be like it might not be as bad as Final Fantasy VII's Rebirth when like you go to talk to somebody, but if you walk through like a bunch of pots, they're just flying all over the place and then stuck behind like you in the counter.
That was one thing you told me to try out, that Control game, right? God, that game has that problem like really badly. I feel like there was several times I like lightly brushed by a desk and it was just like and like flew on the other side of the room.
Yeah,
like, Jesus Christ!
Like Final Fantasy Rebirth has so many physics objects around, and and I know they're just look, it's the same thing, right? It's like it's a living environment. It's like I don't need that many. I don't need to walk into like an entire shelf of bottles and knock them over and have them going all over the place. Like,
yeah, that's what happened.
I was fine with the trash can.
And like, Cloud, what the fuck? Those were my bottles, man.
Yeah.
But that's what happens in Skyrim, but it's like everything can be moved and it takes so long for the game to reset. So it's like when you come back like days later, it's still like everything on the floor. And if you walk over it, there's a chance that it'll knock you over because it collides with your feet and it goes launching out into the room or hitting a wall and it hits you and damages you for real. And then sometimes it can knock you out and you just fall to the ground.
Objects.
Yeah. Dragonborn, why are you putting the bucket on my head, Dragonborn? Please stop, Dragonborn. I need that to live, please.
I don't have the powers to stop you from doing this.
And I mean,
it's also like the physics in it just like let you go through walls, because I know I've faced underground.
You can take
with like a merchant chest.
There's an exploit where in Skyrim you can just take a plate, and if you just shove that plate into the wall, eventually you'll just clip through it, just because of how the physics work.
Yeah, and I mean, just when you're talking about those type of games, like Final Fantasy VII, the original, and this is kind of where getting to my point with the characters, is like you have so much stuff that's in that game that are secrets and such that it almost feels like impossible to come across all of it unless you have the strategy guide. And that was the point for me, was that those strategy guides were very good with art. Like they had all the characters and everything.
Mhm.
You'd be flipping through the pages, and obviously you'd be trying to figure out where is the ruby weapon, where is emerald weapon, all this stuff at, where are these hidden stuff. But in each of those pages, you would have a really cool art design of the character doing something, and you would just be wanting to constantly look through the whole magazine, just checking out what there is out there. And I know a lot of games had that. I know they had like Tales of Abyss and stuff like that. Those books, they had all good art designs that were inside of them, and you just like want to read it and constantly look at it, and it'd just be like a collector item for yourself. Unfortunately, I lost mine, but you know, you'd be able to have those visual things that would be very cool at the sense of it's helping you with the game, but at the same time, it's like just really cool artwork at the same time.
I
It's
feel like
like
strategy guides are a lot more valuable now that we don't have manuals anymore.
it's
in
funny
games.
they sell them at stores near me in my retro store. I was gonna say that like because you're a kid, right? You have your like one game that you want to invest all your time in, so you get the guidebook for it. And so anytime you're not playing the game, you're reading the guidebook to become the master at the game, right? You're trying to figure out what to do next. Like I can turn around right now. I think I can see there's like Pokemon Platinum, Diamond, fucking World of Warcraft. There was even a guidebook for World of Warcraft. Animal Crossing, Skyrim,
fucking
Halo Reach,
fucking
Halo
guidebook.
3. Like, I have a bunch of guidebooks right behind me that I can see that I've kept, and they are all incredibly well worn from, like, years of
Flipping
use
through
and
it.
bringing them to school and flipping them through at school and shit, so.
Yeah. I have the original Final Fantasy VII strategy guide, as well as like Breath of Fire 3, a couple other offshoot ones, like, Devil May Cry, Sonic Adventure 2, for some reason.
Mhm.
Uh, I have Ocarina of Times, and those are really fun. Like I do like looking through them. Like you see a monster you've never seen in the game yet, and you're like, oh, where's he at? That's so
Yeah.
cool. I have the problem though, like I like to get art books of games. Like I'll get especially if it's in a collector's edition. So
Yeah,
like
art books are
I
fun.
get the Bayonetta 3, and I was like, I cannot look through this art book until I beat the game because I don't want to see any of the bosses until I've encountered them. Because like I want to be like, whoa, like oh shit, because when I already know what it's gonna be, then it's kind of like it's less exciting to me
Yeah.
visually because they're usually the bosses in that game are like imposing, right? So I want to be like surprised by it, and then I want to see the breakdowns of like the design of the characters. So, but I do love art books too, outside of like the strategy guides. And then when you weren't buying strategy guides, God bless all those people on GameFAQs.
Exactly. It's
It's
like,
like
God
who's
bless.
writing all of this with all the ASCII art? Like they're
Yeah.
making maps of dungeons with freaking backslash and star and underscore, and it's like, holy crap, you made an entire dungeon walkthrough.
And then you're trying to play it now. It's like, oh, I'm glad someone made this 8 years ago.
Yeah, it's still there. Like the internet's forever. I'm like, oh man, thanks, dude. I hope you're doing well because I went back to play Wild Arms 2 and I really needed this.
I really needed that. No one's updated it on YouTube yet. You're
Yeah,
just
no one's
still the
playing
only
this
thing.
like $300 retro RPG game that I just found, and I don't have any guides anywhere. Every time you look it up, it's always just how to buy it on eBay instead of how to get through a dungeon.
I mean, I know what I said. I don't think I had any JRPG guidebooks, but it's funny because that's a Prime thing, right? Is a JRPG for guidebook or a JRPG because of how much content there is in the game. So it's all
Yeah.
because especially all like the secret content that's usually especially in older ones. That's just like you have to go to this one NPC on the 12th of June on a full moon to get a side quest you never would have seen otherwise.
Yeah, my favorite
The
part
one for
about like
Majora's Mask would have been so useful.
the Final Fantasy ones that I really like are the items. Like when you go through and you look at all the items, because it'll be like Ultima Sword, and I don't give a shit about any other ones. I know I'm going to find them in stores, but when it says Ultima Weapon, it tells you how to get it, and it's like
Mhm.
that's what I want. That's what I came here for. Except for Final Fantasy 9, where they're like, in order to get the best sword for Steiner, you have to get to the third disc in 12 hours, and it's like, what?
Are you
How?
serious?
Yeah, it's like, holy shit! It's like Save the Queen 2 or something like that, or whatever. Excalibur 2, I think is what it's called.
Mhm.
But like
I
it's
hate
just like a
games like that.
super
It's so annoying.
like obscure weapon to get. And I like that though. Like a lot of JRPGs have that as like the ultimate weapons for all the characters. Like Dragon Quest 11 had that like ultimate hero gear for like every single character. So there's a quest for everyone to go get all of their stuff, and it's so cool to get it because then you're like you just feel really strong.
Yeah.
Or you have those outlandish ones like Final Fantasy VII, Knights of the Round to get that fucking materia, to get a black chocobo, you had to be
You
able to
gotta
get
raise it,
Yeah, you got to raise it, and then you got to go across a certain
breed
area
it,
where, yep, and get to
uh,
an island to where there's the actual materia to use it. And it's like you would never figure this shit out on your own unless you had the damn
oh
strategy
yeah,
guide.
a daisy
Mhm.
chain quest line, and you're just like, but nobody, because it's extra content. There's nobody that's designed to like, hey player, this.
Yeah.
You're
So
like, oh, I
the
talked to
people
the
who
one
find it
guy.
out are the people who are just like, I'm just going to talk to this random NPC right now. It's like, here's the God Sword.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, you guys all ignored the dancing guy.
Yeah.
You talk
You
to him
should.
15 times and his dialogue changes.
Yeah, his dialogue changes and he gives you the God Killer sword.
That's one thing I hate about some JRPGs where it's like, oh, you want the ultimate weapon? You got to pretty much do everything else in the game, and then you get the ultimate weapon. But it's like, I already did everything else. What else am I going to use this ultimate weapon for?
I mean,
like,
hopefully it has New Game Plus.
yeah, modern gaming is, in order to get the ultimate weapon, you must attack with your Visa MasterCard. Like, huh?
I hope your
Yeah,
credit limit's 5K at least.
I loved that, like, the quest lines in all these older games to get crazy stuff was like, kind of convoluted, but it was like, it made you feel awesome for finding it out. Like, if you discover it, of course, like most people were just like, how do I get that thing? And you wouldn't even know unless like your friend found it. Because like somebody's talking about something you haven't seen at like school or whatever, and then you go and look up like, oh, there's another thing I can get, and then there's this whole quest line you go on. It's more content to the game that you didn't have to like buy. It's just there whether you needed it or not. Plus, some places like have after final boss like trial dungeons for like the real hardcore players.
Well, they kind of brought that back for what was it, the Super Mario RPG remake, right? Because like the secret final boss, like this Final Fantasy looking ass god creature, right?
That thing is not easy.
Yeah.
The first time wasn't easy, but the second time kind of was.
And-
But it was surprising that you get to fight him twice.
Well, you fight him in his original form, right? And then you fight him in the new 3D like rendered form or something like that.
Yeah.
And in Final Fantasy VII, wasn't Ruby weapon or Emerald weapon you had to fight after you beat the game? Was that?
You can fight Ruby at any time, but like
Jesus Christ, why would you?
you need maybe not any time. You have to at least have gone to the gold saucer, and then I think you have to get the airship, or at least the car, or maybe a chocobo, something. You have to be able to run across the desert.
Ridiculous
and then
amount of
you can fight the
fucking
Ruby
life.
weapon.
Jesus
But
Christ, he had so much life.
I think it's one of those fights where it's like you have to be ready to put in like 30 40 minutes or whatever, unless of course you have like the perfect pro build of like I got mimic double cast 1 MP 0 MP criticals only, and then everybody casts Knights of the Round with auto life. Like there's like there is a solution to that puzzle, and if you use that solution, it just doesn't feel as good as like beating him.
Yeah, and then I also remember
because it's a numbers game, like I mentioned in the last one. It's like usually how I play RPGs is like, well, as long as I have one number higher than that one. I literally beat the first Final Fantasy on Game Boy Advance because I just came down to like everybody was dead except for my red mage, and I was looking at the boss and I was like, how long have I been fighting him? I've been fighting him for like 20 minutes. I can try to revive my people, but he might do a full team wipe. So I think this move is either me or him. And I just pick my strongest move and just, okay, let's see if I win.
Yeah, I don't have that same kind of like being like, all right, I just want this to be as difficult as possible, because again, technically a JRPG, but spawned its own genre. In Elden Ring, I basically got annoyed at everything and decided to look up a build to become the Sorcerer Supreme. And we were talking about Elden Ring last night with my other friends, and they were talking about Radon and being like, "Did you know that little thing underneath him is this like tiny ass horse?" I'm like,
tiny horse.
Yeah, he was like, it's a tiny ass horse.
Little
and he
Sebastian.
was like, yeah. Well, he was what led to that. It was like that's what he targets when he's doing like the meteor attack when he goes into like phase 2 or whatever. And I was like, he does a meteor attack? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I killed him so fast he didn't have a chance to. I didn't even know he did that.
Him before the second form.
And then they're just
like the meteor shower thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then they got those points where you have to fight an enemy for about an hour basically, and then they just get really over the top with it, like Final Fantasy 15. I don't know if anybody heard. If you fight the Adamantoise, takes 72 real time hours to beat. 3 full days. What the hell is that?
I mean, endurance fights are cool, but I just can't. I can't bring myself to do that kind of shit.
You just fight your patience.
My brain's doing like a backflip.
Like, what the fuck?
It's too much work for too little pay. Because the only thing I get out of it is I beat it, and that's not that good for something that like literally is a chore.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would much rather be, oh cool, I got like an item or something. Like make it worth my time. That rather than be like, well, I did that for that long. Because if I fought it for 48 hours and I died, I would just break the game in half. Because I would just be so pissed. And I've been very mad at games before where it's like this fucking, what is it, Seymour on the Mount Gagazet, and if the RNG is not in your favor and he does this stupid missile attack,
banishes like, people too.
Like, oops, I killed your whole team, and you're like, God damn it! And then he's like, oops, I did it again right after you healed everyone. It's like, that's stupid. Why are you doing this?
Well,
because instant kill RPG mechanics are terrible.
Yeah,
it's when they're planned. Like if the boss fights are like, you know, the bosses are designed like if you do this, he will do this, and then you can kind of pick up on these patterns and be like, okay, so I know that if I blink, and this is kind of why I like Final Fantasy X's like combat system, because it tells you the order in which you go, which is also what I really love about the combat system in Grandia, is it tells you when enemies are going to go, and you can cancel that. You can, in Final Fantasy X does it too, where you can knock enemies down a peg, so it's like, well, if I hit him with this move, then he'll go after the next guy, and so it's like almost like a chess match. But sometimes like you don't know what the boss is going to do. Mm-hmm. And like if it's not one of those reactionary boss fights, and it's just like they're just going to pick a move. And it's happened on older ones where he'll be like, I'm going to do an entire team wipe move where everybody's health and magic goes down to 1. But it doesn't kill you, so you have a chance to heal. You're like, okay, fine. I'm going to use my stupid item that I've been saving this whole time to max heal all my people. And he's like, and then I do it again. He's like, and he's like, oh, and I get to go twice this turn, so now your healer's dead. It's like, why did you go twice this time? It's like, I don't know.
I wanted to. Yeah, it's
my agility stat, I guess, is high. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciated Persona's boss fights for that, because it's like they'll have a wind-up turn basically before they're going to do their big fuck you attack, and it's just like, you better block this turn or else your shit's going to get pushed in. It's like, you better do it. If you get hurt, that's your fucking fault, dumbass. And then later on with like the harder bosses, they do kind of do away with that, but it's like it turns into more of like the pattern thing where he's like, all right, he just used this move into this move, so now he's going to do the big fuck you move next turn, so now I have to prepare or something like that. So
it's such a cool moment in like in boss battles is when you're fighting him and you're trading blows or whatever, and then it's his turn and it just says charging for next attack, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, it's cool the first time, but after like the first 30 times, then you kind of get sick of it. You're like, all right, that's enough. Knock the shit off. And he's like, no, I'm going to go again. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, some of those like 100% RNG fights, though, you can just get totally like... when I beat Seymour, he never did that group wipe move on Mount... he didn't do any of the missiles. So like, oh, that was convenient. Because I beat him in like no time, but like the one time I fought him, he's like 3 times in a row. I can't heal that.
Oh, that's what pissed me off. And again, technically classifies as a JRPG. I was playing Monster Hunter Stories, which is basically Monster Hunter Pokemon, where you train the monsters and use them with other monsters. But like, I got to the fucking Nergigante boss fight in Monster Hunter Stories 2, and how the game works is that you have your monster, which you can switch out for other, like a party of like 5 monsters, and you typically have an NPC companion and their monster. So you have 4 people on your side of the field, and during this boss fight, it's just Nergigante. And how I was led to believe the AI worked is that it would typically just target someone random on your side of the field with random moves every turn. And your like basis for failure is that you basically have 3 lives. So if you or your monster faints, you lose a life. And and then your NPC has its own like 3 sets of lives. And my person had 1 life left, and I was like, okay, I'm a little low on health. There's like a 1 in 3 chance he's going to attack someone else that's not me. So I was like, all right, I'm going to heal this turn, and I healed, and then he attacks me. I'm like, all right, no big deal. I got more healing items. He'll surely attack someone else this turn. And it's like I heal, he attacks me again, brings me right back down to the same exact amount of health. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it again. And it's like, and he attacks me again. Proceed to do this for 7 fucking turns in a row. And I'm like, fuck this game. And I turned it off. This is so fucking stupid.
I just picture you rummaging through a shitload of potions in your pocket. Like, hold the fuck up. Wait, give me a minute. I'm fucking, god damn it. Wait, I'm trying to use it again. I can't keep this shit up.
Room for potions.
Fucking spilling it.
I was so pissed because I'm like,
know about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was getting at is like, there's no way it's random. It's like the AI knows I am dying and is going for the kill shot every single fucking turn, but I can't live with enough health to like do something else other than heal myself again. And I'm like, this is
slaps
fucking
the potion out of your hand. You pick up another one, slaps that one out of your hand.
Fucking slaps you.
Dude, stop.
You just fucking slapped me.
I might go back to it someday, but I think it was double because it was fucking Ner Gigante and because Capcom just has this giant fucking boner on for that goddamn monster because every time you have to fight it, it's like, all right, you know all the rules we just had? We're throwing it all the shit out the window and it's just a god, fuck you. And it's just like fucking fuck Capcom, fuck Monster Hunter, fucking stupid fucking bullshit.
You're cool, but fuck you, I'm out.
Yeah.
The combat systems are really important in JRPGs to me, and like there's some that I cannot get behind, and then there's some that I just love. And like I don't mind active. Like when they introduced the active turn battle, when you're playing like Final Fantasy, and if you're not doing something, the enemy will just attack your ass again.
Yeah.
Like that is kind of cool though, because it's like it keeps you on your toes. It's like, okay, I know I have to act, otherwise the monster's gonna just go because you're wasting its time.
Mm-hmm.
But like Final Fantasy X's like turn order listing on the side is cool. Grandia's is really cool because it has like a gauge on the bottom and it shows like where everybody is on the field that's about to turn. Plus your position on the field is important because there are AoE attacks, and one of the things that you can do when it's your turn is you can move somewhere else on the field. And when it gets to a point of making your there's a gauge that goes for weight, and then you get to pick an action. So you can see when the enemies pick an action, and then it has to charge. But if you hit them with a critical hit, you cancel their attack and send them back down the line. So you can kind of control the battle if you do the right moves. But if you pick a critical attack and you miss, it just feels so shitty because you're like, oh, damn it, you're supposed to save her. Now she's going to eat that spell because you didn't knock him back a little bit. But that's such a cool combat system, and there's like plenty of other ones. One that I'm not a fan of are card combat systems. I guess
Chain of Memories.
Yes, Chain of Memories drives me fucking crazy. And then
is that a one-off, or can you give me another example? Because I'm kind of confused.
Baten Kaitos has one where, like at the beginning of the game, it draws like 5 cards, and so you got to choose like, oh, these are the cards I have, and I have to play them now. And then it's very random, but it's very like Yu-Gi-Oh. Like you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh against monsters, and I don't like that kind of combat style. I also don't like combat styles where I can't see my characters, and it's just like their names on the screen, and that's kind of the problem.
Voice of the cards.
Like I have that problem. Well, voice of the cards is different. That's like the most counter version of what I'm talking about here, because like I just say I don't like the card things. That entire game is a card game, but I think I like that game because that is the point. Is it's like a board game adventure. Whereas,
I mean, I actually kind of like that system, I guess, because how you're describing it's basically how Fate Grand Order on my phone kind of does it, because you have like you have like a set of like 3 characters on the field at any one given time, and there's like 3 card types of Buster, Arts, and Quick, and each character will have 5 cards, and depending on which types they have is like depending on like their class and what they do, and then every turn basically the game draws 5 of your like deck of 15 at random for you to use that turn, and then after 3 turns are up when you've gone through it all, like reshuffles them essentially. I always kind of like that because I don't mind a bit of RNG in my thing, because you also still have some kind of like some kind of control over it, I guess, because you're deck building in a sense for your like the highest chances of pulling certain cards. Don't get me wrong, I've been in situations playing that game, especially like doing some dumbass challenge fight or something, where it's like, man, I could really use a Buster card right now, and it's just like, lol, no. Or it's like I really need fucking, Saber's like 3 Buster card combo. It's like, well, here's like 4 Merlin cards and 2 Orion cards. Fuck you. And it's like, great, awesome, thank you, game. I'm gonna have to restart this entire fight now.
Like, yeah, it's like I like having direct agency over what my characters are doing.
I think that's why I like the turn-based system for JRPGs in general. I enjoy. I was kind of miffed actually because I thought that Final Fantasy VII, the original, was strictly a turn-based one, but then after I started playing it, I realized it was kind of like this weird hybrid of a turn-based, but it also had like the charge meter thing. I was like, oh, I didn't understand this is how this worked. I'm kind of getting used to it, but
that like your character's like agility or whatever affects how fast that bar fills.
Yeah, because I noticed already that like Cloud's filled faster than Barrett's. Yeah, that's his name. Okay,
ATB or whatever.
I was interested. Which, by the way, I found that funny. Fucking old ass RPG like trope where you get to name your character, and I found because it's funny because like, what's your name? And I'm looking at Cloud, and I'm like, Cloud. Like, I'm not gonna name myself anything else. Like, I'm not used to that. I'm like, I've just always known this character as Cloud. I'm not gonna call it Udon or anything. I'm Cloud.
I'm gonna name him Steven.
Yeah,
he seems like a Steven.
Yeah,
Steve.
I just found that funny.
Yeah, but no, like there's some really cool combat systems. I guess Disgaea I really enjoy like that tactical. I don't. It's kind of hit or miss because like I don't really.
I think it's like
Fire
more of a system,
Yeah, I mean I like Fire Emblem, but like I don't really.
I feel like I have less control over Fire Emblem actually, like even less control than like a card-based thing because Fire Emblem's all about like percentages and stuff. Because I remember I was fighting the last boss of Fire Emblem Awakening, and I had if the stars aligned, I could win this turn, or I had to start the entire thing over basically. So I basically just save scum the fuck out of it. Basically, I had one guy in front, and if he crit the boss, I would win. But he also had to live to being not killed. Like 2 enemies had to miss him, and then he had to crit the boss, and then he also had to attack twice, and the boss had to miss as well, and I would win. And then I just kept resetting the game over and over and over and over again until
for the right numbers to generate.
Yeah, until the percentages lined up, because I'm just like, I know I can win, but the game, because it's just a percentage numbers, you're telling me I'm not going to win, but I'm going to win. Fuck you.
Yeah, and I mean, I really do like the active combat style of like Tales and Star Ocean. Like those games are really fun. There is a couple like unique ones that like I haven't really seen replicated. I know that Legend of Dragoon has like a spiritual successor of like an indie game. I can't really remember what that's called right now, but they do that like.
Well, Dragoon is like it's turn based, but it when you select your, at least how I understand it, you select your move, but depending on what move you select, there's like a QTE segment you have to do in order to like get all your damage off.
Yeah, and if you fuck it up, you definitely don't hit for a lot of damage.
Yeah,
and it's I understand, like I like the counter. Like if you run at an enemy and it flashes circle, it's because they're about to block you. And so it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool mechanic. Like, it keeps you paying attention instead of just dronely pressing X. But when you have to do a quick time event every single time, like I like Legend of Dragoon. I like the visual style of it. I just enjoy the world building and the characters of that one. But the combat, man.
I've watched my friends play it, and they're like near the end of the game right now. And some of those end game combos is like a 9-10 hit button combo that you cannot fuck up on, or you just gave up like more than half of your DPS that turn. That being said, I actually like that system because I like the slightly nerfed system, because it's basically the same system as Paper Mario and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, right? It's like I select a move and then I have to hit this timing of it correctly in order to do more damage. And I actually kind of like that because it's just a little active. I do enjoy turn-based stuff because I don't think very fast. So stuff like Xenoblade that has like this active combat system, not to mention Xenoblade has a bunch of like status systems and all this other shit I have to keep track of in the middle of active combat. That drives me nuts. Yeah, it drives me absolutely insane. but I like turn-based because it's like every turn I can like recollect myself and be like, all right, what am I working with? You know, it's like what are my items? What's everyone's health at? What's everyone's MP? What do I got to do? What am I working with? And then like execute a strategy based on that. And having that action combat not only that allows me to do that, but then also when I'm attacking, I'm also not just sitting there watching something happen. I'm actively participating in the attacks. You know.
Yeah, like for me, like Dragon in Dragoon, like if there was a regular attack option and then like you pick a special move, because I don't think there is a regular just like punch him. I think you actually have to equip like the move that you're going to do or something like that. I'd have to go back and really kind of play.
Yeah, I can't tell. I do know. I think there is an item in the game. I think there's only one of them though, where you can equip an item on a character that'll automatically succeed all the QTEs for you. But at the same time, that's now an item like an accessory slot that you could be using to like just straight up upgrade your damage or defense or whatever, but instead you're using it because you're not getting good.
Yeah. And I think like the more you use the move set is like how you get other moves too.
Yeah, that's how you grind,
I think
'cause
that's
like
you
level them
don't
up.
do that. You don't select them from a list. You actually equip the next combo because the combos get longer and then it's more and more damage.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. Is like you don't have an option to like just hit him. You know, you have to do this like dance. And then you know, it's like, oh, okay. And it's a cool idea, like, you know, but 4 discs long of it, and it's just kind of like either you're really good at it and it you kind of just it's just muscle memory now, or I would imagine like if you play it with any latency, you're like, I swear I pressed the damn button at the right time.
Yeah, that's the timing on it.
Very precise.
I haven't, like I said, I haven't played it, but watching my friends play it. And again, if you fuck up on like one of the really long combos in the end game, it's like there goes like half your damage.
Yeah,
and
it's usually like Albert, the guy with the
Yeah,
spear, and it's like 12 buttons.
yeah, I've watched them play it. I can see them pressing the button and then they'll fail, and I'm like, I genuinely don't understand how you failed that. Essentially, you know?
Yeah. What is it? There's a game called Legend of Legaia, and that one has a really interesting combat system because it's kind of like a fighting game where you put inputs in and then they go and do it. So it'll be like high punch, low punch, front, like, you know, strong punch, low kick. And
was that the one me and Travis were playing? You got that at the retro store, the one that was like you like input a bunch of fighting moves?
I don't know what that game is. That was the weird 3D like how was I playing that on 64?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that game was weird. I can't remember what that's called, but I forgot that it was like a weird like almost Metal Gear.
Now.
Huh?
It's in the room you're in right now.
Yeah, but
well, among like 800 other cartridges.
Yeah, I'd have to go dig around in there, but like I think it's not Shadowgate or anything, but it kind of looks like
name.
a Metal Gear Solid meets like Final Fantasy. It was like beating up like bees or something like that.
It was very strange.
Yeah, it was yeah, because it's like, oh yeah, you just beat up this werewolf guy and you're in a science facility thing.
Yeah, it was like all about like the werewolf comes up to you and then it just like puts up his fist and is like square up, and it's like it turns into a fighting game, but like a fighting turn-based fighing game. And I'm just like, what the fuck is
shut
this?
Up, dude! I got a vest on because this is the 90s. But Legend of the Gaia, like your characters, they have like strong punches like 2 slots and weak punches like 1 slot. So you have like and as you level up, you get more space to put these options into. But so you like put like a combo of like 4 or 5 hits together, and then he goes and does it. And if you did a super move, like if I accidentally did like a quarter circle forward B type of thing, he'll learn. It'll be like a secret art that he just discovered, and then he does like a super move, and that has not been replicated in any game that I can think of right now. And there's 2 of them. I think it's only Legend of Legaia 1 on PlayStation 1 and Legend of Legaia 2 on PS2. The graphics are not that great in both games, but the combat system alone is like what's more interesting to me, because it just makes that game so unique, which I think is like JRPGs are usually defined by the combat system, the way the characters level up, and then like the visual style they chose, which we discussed earlier, that a lot of them are very reminiscent of probably one of your more favorite animes, and it's probably because the guy who drew that anime was like hired by this team to do the character art.
Yeah.
But like the combat system is really important for me for games, as well, because it's the thing I'm going to be doing a lot. Just as much, of course, as paying attention to the characters. And so, like, that's why another reason why I like Grandia so much. But a game that not a lot of people talk about that's really cool is Thousand Arms, and they're
Still haven't gotten around to that. It's sitting over there, and I still need to play it. But the English voice acting makes me want to die.
yeah, it's pretty cringe, but like, the combat system for that one is like a 1v1. Like you have a team of you and two others, but you never fight like, you're never fighting like three monsters at once. Even like a boss fight. So even when you're at a boss, it's you and him. And if you want to use one of your other characters, you got to swap them in. So it feels more like a 2D fighting game that's kind of turn-based. And like I just thought the graphics, nostalgia glasses. Like I thought the graphics were so good because it.
Oh yeah.
Like it didn't look like any of the other games when it was like 2D characters animated, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, like I played it a little bit. I just haven't gotten like super into it, especially for like the amount of time you have to put into a JRPG. But I was like, I played it a little bit, and I was like, holy fuck, this is a PS1 game? I was like, god damn, this looks good for a PS1 game. Like, holy shit.
And that game has a lot of stuff going for it. Like, it has the dating visual novel aspect of it, but they tie it visual novel.
Yeah, tie it into the weapon crafting. It's the weird. Again, it's like you think about that, and it's like that's fucking anime as shit right there. It's like that sounds very Japanese.
Like a lot of voice acting, like even if it's hit or miss, it's still like there's a lot of these cool parts where you see full like drawn anime characters and they're talking to each other. So like the characters
there's a lot
are really
animated
cool,
sections,
and the story is delivered like really well. And it's like it's about spirit blacksmiths and. Like it literally was just like checking every box that like I really liked as like a 12 13-year-old kid.
It's like I get to date pretty girls and then they make really cool weapons for me and I can slay the monsters.
Yeah, it was so fun. And like I would love to make like an RPG game like that, like with using their combat system and stuff, because it's just so cool. Of course RPGs are a shitload of work, so
lots of
writing. A lot of time. Yeah, lots of writing and a shitload of everything else because it's a giant world that you have to explore and whatever. But yeah, that one's really cool. And I love the progression, the character progression of like, because the dating thing, it's more of like learning about it's character building too, and then it's really neat because you're not just like hitting on him to be like some pervy dude where you're like, yeah, I'm trying to figure
out.
I'm
sorry, that is what it's framed as. Like the first scene of the game, your dad's like, hey son, why I'm hanging out with this pretty lady? And it's like, I don't know, because you're nice. It's like, no, because I need to make good weapons. What the fuck are you talking about?
Sorry, I'm a poon hound. I got 4 or 5 baddies with me at all times because these blades don't sharpen themselves. And you're like,
exactly. What? It's like it's really framed, at least at the beginning, that you were just like a horn dog. Like you were like the most depraved piece of shit I've ever seen in my life.
Just using women to work in your sweatshop to sharpen swords.
No, they just need to pray really hard at your blade. Is all it really is. But there's so many different I think there's like 7 different people, and like it's a a PlayStation 1 game, so having like that much dialogue for like 7 different characters, like
not to mention all the fucking actual animation because of all the space that takes up on a disc. The
workload of that game is really crazy.
Yeah,
for what it is. Despite all of the positives though, there's one thing that I really just do not like about that game, and it's the fucking sound the character makes when he runs around. It's like shaking a bucket of rocks or whatever. Like the whole time, no matter where you're at, just constantly. It's like, can I mute that? Can anything else? I would much rather have background music or something.
No, like, this is an old game. You can't fix anything.
Yeah, you can't adjust this. This is what it is.
Yeah, it's terrible.
There's no updates.
Don't you like it?
You bought this was at the store. It's been on the shelf for 4 years.
I think that was one of the things it wasn't in. I said I was playing Metroid Prime as well. That was actually something that caught. Like I was thinking about playing it because I'm enjoying it, except for the part where you have to use the scanner a lot, and the scanner's like awkwardly bound to the D-pad. So I have to take my thumb off the control stick, which is also your aiming stick because it's like weird GoldenEye ass controls.
Stop doing something to do something else.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to use it in battle, and I'm like, I hope I can rebind this because I haven't tried to, but something's telling me I can't because it's a GameCube game and they never
Yeah,
figured
it's
that shit
very
out yet.
specific. Like,
Yeah.
because Nintendo in general, they like to utilize every button on the controller to like its maximum potential. So it's like you will press this button to do this thing because it was
Like
meticulously designed to be that button. And it's
yeah,
like, why?
because I mean, it's like my question is why? Because all I think about is that like because the map is like Z, and I'm like, why not put the map on the D-pad when I'm only looking at that sometimes where I'm using the
I'm not
scanner all
fighting
the
anything.
time? Yeah, and I just bind that to Z, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the scanning feature is like really popular in Japan, but I think they dialed the scanning down a little bit in the other ones. But it was like really important in the first game, and I know they're still scanning in the second one, but like I know that a lot of more Western players like kind of complained about it, and then it's like more popular in with Japanese players, and I think the same thing happens with like JRPGs in general for like Western RPGs is the UI of like JRPGs. Some of them can be like the stat tracking and everything is so crazy because there's just
Dragon's Dogma.
all the information is on the screen, and it's like I don't want to see everything on the
Yeah.
screen, but like a lot of like Japanese players really enjoy seeing all of the numbers. Like going and like, oh, this thing is here. I'm locked onto that guy. This thing's over there. Blah blah blah. This is how much health everything on the fucking screen has. Um, but yeah, and then the numbers, right? It's like, oh, I hit this, like I'm fighting a bat and I hit him for 14 million, and
Yeah.
he's like still has like most of his health bar back, and I was like, well, both of us are level 5 and I have 19,000 health, and it's like, what? Why are the numbers so large? But even though I say that, I was kind of frustrated with
Serotonin.
Kingdom Hearts and like the Mario RPG games because it'd be like Mario has 7 health. It's like
Mhm.
7. He's about to die. It's like, no, it's 7 out of 7. It's like, yeah, but you bump into anything even if it hits you for 1, now he's got 6. That's crazy. He's almost dead.
And it says tough shit, nerd.
Yeah, like Final Fantasy 13 does the million damage thing, or Disgaea. Jesus, you hit things for like 160 billion or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the numbers game is kind of fun for like the combat things. But like I'm pretty. I think like even though it's an arbitrary thing that doesn't really matter, I think my happy place is like when you're doing like hundreds of damage, and then like late game, it's like, oh, I hit him for like 1,200 or like 1,000 or something like that.
I mean, it definitely becomes out of control at a certain point because, again, not a JRPG, but there was a time, I think it was either Mists of Pandaria or the next expansion where World of Warcraft did basically a stat squish because they were like, all right, we're done with this like level 140 bullshit and everyone's doing like 8 billion damage per auto attack, not to mention all your abilities. Like they just squashed everything to where like you would still keep your stats technically, but they just like reduced all the numbers down so it's not as completely insane, So
Yeah.
I feel like it's I guess maybe intimidating for some people, or it just becomes too much. Again, it's probably that thing you're talking about with the UI thing, since World of Warcraft appeals more globally than just in Asian countries, and people are just like, I can't see anything because there's too many numbers on the screen.
Yeah. Well, was Jordan, didn't you want to go through favorite RPGs or JRPGs?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, wake up, Jordan.
No. Yeah, so I was just wanting us to go around and basically just discuss what was our favorite RPG to us, because I know obviously a lot of us have a very important one dearest to our hearts, and obviously it'd be kind of a cool thing for us to express that and basically give off what really is your favorite. So, Corey, do you want to start?
Wait, hold on. Let me guess. Final Fantasy.
No,
Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger.
Yeah,
bro.
Chrono
it's
Trigger.
definitely going to be like Chrono Trigger, and I know that's a very cliche thing for like an avid player of JRPGs.
I don't think Chrono Trigger is. Honest to God, I don't really feel like I hear people talk about Chrono Trigger the way at least you do. I don't feel like there's a lot of like I feel like people like it fine enough, but it's not like super hardcore fans.
Yeah, I mean, some people like it's one of those things where it's like it's cool to like hate on it or be a contrarian about it. But like the reasons why I like it isn't because it's such a like it's a popular game. You know, it's to me like I was the right age when I played it, and it was like it's not overly complicated of a like a story to kind of get into. Like it's yes, it's time travel and stuff, but it is very like go here, like obvious. Like the level design is not so complicated, but the pixel art is so awesome. Like so
Yeah.
everywhere is just so detailed. And the characters look like Dragon Ball characters, which I was a big Dragon Ball Z fan. The music is really good. I think I listened to it every day while I was in college because I had the soundtrack for it in my car. And then the moves, the multiple endings. So there's like a reason to play it again. And I don't usually play RPGs like more than one time because it's like, well, unless it's a remake or something. Like I don't like I. It's like I just beat Final Fantasy IX. Why am I going to play this again? Like I have to wait like 5 years to want to pick it up again. But like
I
Chrono
feel like
Trigger,
that's standard though. Like couple
yeah,
like 3 to 4 years is typically for anyone will turn around and play another game again, even if you already played it.
yeah, and it's like the locales. There's like a lot. There's a lot in it. Like a lot of content to consume. That's in a nice tight package of like good music, good combat, good character art.
Now, what's the
And
combat like? Is that turn based or?
it's turn based, but I think you can choose if you want it to be like active or if you want it to be 100% turn based. And
Mhm.
it was one of those revolutionary things because as far as like Super Nintendo games go, when you got into fight, you got in a fight where you were on the map, and so like you didn't go to a battle screen; you were fighting there on the screen where you were walking, and so
Oh,
by design, that means all of the fights in the game are pretty much hand placed rather than being like random battles. Because I know there's some games, like especially some of the older games, that I think like Fantasy Star 2 or 3 or whatever is notorious for it, but the random battle system for that is fucking chaos. Like you could be fighting hundreds of monsters because like the RNG for that is just like not in your favor. You get in a fight, you get out of the fight, you take 2 steps, you're back in a fight. You get out of the fight, 1 step, back in another fight, and it's like God. But in
Zubat,
Chrono Trigger,
Zubat,
like
Zubat.
yeah, in Chrono Trigger, it's like this dungeon has 15 fights, and you
Mhm.
can run them back if you like respawn the enemies, but like you will only do this much. And so another game that does this very well, that's an indie game, is called Cosmic Star Heroine, and it's the same style of game,
What
right? It's
kind of
like
heroin?
well, like the girl, yeah.
Okay.
But she's that in that game, like everything is hand placed as well. All the battles are intentional, and I don't even think there's a level system. I can't really remember. I think it's more about like you unlock skills and stuff, but it's it is balanced to the numbers game that I was talking about earlier. It's like everything has perfect synergy to like work off of what it is.
hmm
And in Chrono Trigger, like the characters all play off each other, so there's multiple characters. You can fight with only 3, but you have other characters that you can get on your team, and you can build a team out. And you don't need to have the main character on your party, so that's another big like plus. So if you don't want Chrono and you want to use Magus, you can use Magus.
I think
And
that is an argument for people to replay JRPGs like that, right? So if you have like a way to customize your party like that, it's like, oh well, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna play it again, but I'm gonna use a different party. Which,
yeah,
since JRPGs are pretty much cut straight down the middle between combat and story, it's like that's more than half the game that's being changed if you're using a different party. So that could be some kind of excuse to replay it.
yeah, and since they work off each other, it's like Magus has a move that he learns with Chrono, or
hmm
Magus has a move that he learns with Frog, or Frog has a move that he learns with Chrono. And it's so like you can build a team that you want, and then you still get to experience the same story, but there are different dialogue options that happen depending on the characters that you're using when you're doing that mission. Because if you're doing the mission, the other characters are waiting at the end of time, so they're not actually there. It's not one of those incidents where everybody walks out of like the one body character and then they're all standing there like, oh, all of us
Yeah, they
together
all
are here at
morph into
once.
everyone.
Yeah, so it's the game itself is just really tightly wound and hyper focused on like what it is, and that's what I like about it. And it does handle time travel in a fun way. That's not like I don't need to understand why it works. It just feels awesome to do stuff where it's like, go back in time, plant this tree, and then go back to the future and then find the thing and, where the tree was, that kind of stuff. And it's, it's really cool. But yeah, to me, that's like a 10 out of 10 RPG. And I would like to play at some point when I have more time, Sea of Stars, because I know that that's a like spiritual successor, inspired game. But after playing Cosmic Star Heroine, that I liked that game a lot because it was a very similar. Clearly, they liked Chrono Trigger, and the art style I think is very similar too. So, but it's like sci-fi, which is kind of neat. And I would, I believe some of the people that worked on Chrono Trigger or something made a game called I Am Setsuna, and that is like a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger.
I remember when that came out because I watched you play it at your house, and you seemed pretty into it at the time, at least.
I really like that one. The music is all like piano. It's still my background for PS4, like the theme where it plays the song from Setsuna. It has like really cool Easter egg village that turns into pixel art, and you like all the NPCs that live there are the devs that worked on the game, and you talk to them and they're like, hey, thanks for getting the game, I worked so hard, blah blah blah. And it's like that's a really cool thing. So it's like Chrono Trigger isn't just like an important game in like the JRPG realm, but like it's
like they said in the
something
Symphony, it's inspiring.
Yeah, it's something that like I can thoroughly pick up and just play it, and then know that even if I've played it for the 100th time, like I still enjoy like pressing start for the first time again.
Yeah, very very big inspiration for you to get into game development, essentially.
Yeah,
big influence on you and your art style, I can tell. Well, I guess I'll go next. JRPGs haven't had a huge influence in my life. Again, if we discredit Pokemon as being its own thing, because if that's involved, then for sure it has had a big influence. But as far as like, as we discussed in the last episode, as far as we kind of more or less define how a JRPG is, or at least what a JRPG typically entails, the most experience with is Persona, and that's actually more recently in my life. Like I had a roommate in college, Logan. Shout out to Logan if you ever end up listening to this at some point. It didn't take while we were roommates, but I finally did get into it after we got out of college. But because they had Persona 4 on the PSP way back, or PS Vita way back when, and I needed something to play while I was visiting my father in Massachusetts, and I played that over the summer, and I ended up really enjoying it, or summer, whatever. I had time to play it regardless. JRPG, kept my interest, and I was really interested in it because it really started to like wake me up to like how good turn-based combat can be, how neat and interesting characters can be in RPGs like this, because up to then most of the games I played are pretty basic story where most of like the lore is happening outside of the actual game, like Halo and stuff like that. The games are only giving you baseline story to get you through the game, whereas a lot of the lore of Halo I learned from reading the books and stuff, right? And but Persona always intrigued me because, especially for its gameplay, I really love Persona's gameplay. And while Persona's kind of like what was it, like Dragon Age and I guess Final Fantasy, according to you guys, where you can jump in at any point in the timeline. Like they're only connected by like the personas themselves and like how the combat system generally works, with a couple tweaks every edition. But to get into it, because I played Persona 4, really like that, and then when Persona 5 was coming out, I was super excited because I already now I know I like Persona. So 5 came out and I played that, and 5 is my favorite. I do like Royal a lot. I'm iffy on like the additional content they added to it, especially like the final chapter, essentially, for people who know about it. I don't want to get to spoilerinos, but it's I think it's all right. The other additions they gave to Royal were good though. But so I'll talk about more about Persona 5, since again that's where I have most of my time, because I've played through that twice, where Persona 4 I've only played through once. So Persona is like is a JRPG where it's kind of also split up into two parts. You have your story kind of life sim part, and then you have like your gameplay part. And how Persona 5 works is that you're a student who saw like a woman getting molested on a street by some drunken man, and as a high school student, you're like, I'm gonna help her, and you go to help her, but turns out that guy is like a politician or something with a lot of connections, and he's pissed off that you interfered, and basically you get arrested and you get blamed for hurting him because he accidentally trips and falls over and hurts his head, but he says that you shoved him. So you're basically on house arrest in a different city under a care of like a guardian of sorts, who decided to take you in. Well, that's why I also like Persona 5 as opposed to 3, because I was invested in this story immediately, because it's like a thing JRPGs have a hard time getting me into is like, do I relate to the main character? And it's like, who in their right mind would not help a lady in that situation, but you're just unlucky that this drunken man happened to have like a lot of pull in the political system and decided to fuck you over, essentially, right? So you're already sympathetic to the main character. And so you're like, all right, cool, you're here now. And so you have to adjust to being like in the middle of Tokyo and near Shibuya, to go to this new school who is willing to take in a criminal, essentially, because now you have a record. And everyone at school's kind of against you because they're like, oh, he's the criminal. He fucking beat up someone for no fucking reason. I hear he kills people, shit like that. And you get a few friends who, you know, they'll get to know you and be like, oh, you're not a bad guy at all. I don't understand why people treat you like shit. And then and in most Persona games, you kind of randomly come across like the inciting incident of this random power of being able to go into this other world, like quote unquote the Persona world, for lack of a better term. They call it like humanity's collective unconscious, essentially. It's essentially like a mental world layered on top of our own. And again, the lore for how that works does change per game you're playing, because how that's explained is different in 4 and is different in 5. But for 5 or per 3 and 4, but this is how it works in 5. And so you get your powers in this other realm. You can control this thing called a persona, which is basically the inner embodiment of like your true self, essentially. And while all your teammates only have one persona, the gimmick that you have in every game, the protagonist, is you can control multiple personas. So it's also kind of like partly a creature collector, because you get to get multiple personas that you can switch between. And there's a bunch of like elemental weaknesses and stuff like that to help to make do with the combat, and I'll get to the combat in a second. But so you get different personas and you fuse them together and can make stronger forms, and you can make really, really broken shit once you like realize how the system works, like stuff that's like way beyond your player's level. And how the combat works is like every enemy has like an elemental weakness associated to it, and when you hit them with their weakness, they'll fall down and they'll be like incapacitated for like the turn. And the goal basically is to find everyone's elemental weakness and knock all the enemies down in a turn, because once you knock them all down, your team can do a super attack, and generally that will just fuck up the entire fight immediately. And while that leads to most fights ending within the one turn, because once you know a certain enemy's weakness, you just use it and, you know, it's one and done. But the thing is, the enemies are just as powerful as you are. So typically in fights that are lasting longer than 1-2 turns, they can very easily turn on you, because the enemies hit just as hard as you do and can do the same thing back to you. So if they hit you with your elemental weakness, they'll knock you down and hit you with a bunch of nasty status effects and shit and do a fuck ton of damage. And if the protagonist dies, it's game over. And it's a game where, you know, it's a JRPG. If you haven't saved in, 6 hours, good luck, fucker. But
yeah,
it's like, I hope you saved. If you didn't, you're fucked. But what's interesting is that, so that's the main combat system. I describe it as like a domino system, where every fight you're setting up the dominoes and then knocking them all over and seeing it work out in the end. And the bosses largely follow the same rules with a few additional mechanics here and there. The goal is to still knock them down and do the big super attack. And that's basically the main gameplay through the entire game. But like I said, it's changed by how, like Corey's Chrono Trigger, you have like 6 or 7 teammates, but you only ever have you and 3 others, and you can never switch out the protagonist. The protagonist is on your team the entire time, and all your teammates have like set abilities. Like we have Ryuji, who's the like melee guy, Morgana, who has wind, and An, who has fire attacks, and so on and so forth. And so you use them based basically what your weaknesses are, and you try and cover for what you don't have. But then the other flip side of the game is like this social life aspect, because on top of like your typical stats of like health, attack, damage, and stuff like that, attack, damage, defense is what I meant. You have like this kind of life sim where you're also trying to maintain your daily life and like keeping up with your schoolwork and hanging out with your friends outside of school to increase not only like a different stat called like your social links, your social links, which is when you're hanging out with significant characters and you're following basically their personal storylines with the shit they're dealing with in real life and you're helping them through it. And the more you increase them, they're all associated with a major arcana, like a arcana card, like people who aren't familiar with like tarot cards, like Moon, Zoworldo, fucking Magician, shit like that. And each character is associated with one of those, as well as every persona has one of those associated with it. So the higher you get your social ranks, the more experience those personas will get when you make more of them, when you're like fusing your different personas to make them more powerful, which is how you get stuff that's like way above your level. And then you get your social links up to unlock additional systems in the world, be it shops, items, stuff like that, to help you within the battle. And then basically the entire game is like problem appears, you go into the persona world, which is usually tied with a certain person's like unconscious desires. Like you go in these places called palaces, which are like certain people's like inner mental domains when they become really corrupted, and basically you're forcibly changing their minds on certain things. To not to get too heavy or to get too spoiler, but the first one is basically there's this coach at the school that does not like you. The coach is a horrible person who beats all of the volleyball players because he's like this world famous champion, and he's like only at the school to train the volleyball team. So he puts them through these horrible training regimens, beats them and shit like that, and like allegedly harasses all the female volleyball players, and typically taking it much farther than that implied wise. We're not going to use too harsh words, but so he's a piece of shit, and one of the female students basically tries to kill herself, and she jumps from a roof, fails, but you're like, all right, we gotta do something about this fucker. And that's when you kind of start your crusade against like changing people's minds. So you go into his palace, you fight like the mental version of him, and you force him to change his mind to basically come out and admit that he's a piece of shit, basically confess to everything he's done and be like, I'm a piece of shit, take me to jail, all this other shit. And that's basically how the game goes. You'll get involved in some kind of thing where there's like a time limit that you have to do to get through this person's palace, which is like every level, get through it, steal their treasure, which changes their minds, and fight the boss at the end. And then repeat that ad nauseum, give or take a few different things throughout the game to change things. And again, that general gameplay loop kind of exists within the other personas, where I guess a small blur before I'll let it go at this point is I've been playing the Persona 3 Reload, which I wasn't. It's not that I don't like it. In fact, I still love the music, but compared to 5, I'm not nearly as like invested, because in that game you're not given time limits. In that game, your whole purpose is to go up this giant tower called Tartarus every night, and that's like your only goal. Like, there's not multiple different levels based on other people's cognition, making interesting variations in level designs and art styles. It's like this one static place that you're just going all the way up. And you get to like random stopping points that isn't clear when they're going to be cleared. Because I've gotten to the point where it's like, all right, we have to wait for something in reality to change before the tower will let us go any further, which basically means I have to wait for so many days in game for something to happen for the game to progress forward. Whereas in Persona 5, you're given a very clear like time frame in which to progress and when things are going to change, and you kind of use that to balance going into doing the mission and doing your social links and stuff like that. And all the games take place over roughly like a year, so every day changes. You get to see the date change, and you kind of have like a gauge for how far you are in the game based on that. I know that was a lot of talking, but there's a lot of things to say about Persona that I feel like it does really well. But I don't want it to just be me spouting this off for 40 minutes, so I'll go ahead and hand it off to something else. But yeah, I really like Persona. I think it's a very well-designed game, and I think a lot of people would like it if they got into it a bit, which, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, shit's on Game Pass. So...
I can really appreciate the Persona franchise. Like, culturally, the game itself is just this monster phenomenon of like people being familiar with the characters even if they've never played the game. I mean, Joker's in Smash Brothers.
That blew my mind. When that happened, I was so happy. I was like, that was something I never even considered would be a possibility, you know?
The music is great. The style is like very like recognizable. Even across the Shin Megumi games, like the art style is always like very recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the energy that the games always deliver because they're very like, they touch on very deep subjects like you were going over, but like the game itself is like jazzy. You know, all of them have that same style of, you know, just
jazz hands.
I don't know. Yeah, the jazz. They have this like really fun, like pop culture-esque like attitude. And then even Persona is so powerful that it has like its own, what is it, Dance All Night like spin-off.
Yeah, they all have dance spin-offs. They just had a Persona 5 tactical shooter spin-off and shit.
Yeah,
they have DS games spin-off. Yeah, they have a fighting game. They have a DS game spin-off where they like cross worlds and you can see interactions between all the different Persona protagonists from all the different games, and like it's huge, and it's hard to say because again, it's a JRPG. Like 2 hours talking by itself isn't enough time to cover everything in that game, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, and as I've said before, has its flaws because there's easily several times in the plot I can be like, nah, the shit's over. You guys already fucked yourselves, you know? It's not even worth considering. But but the characters are always, I feel, really good. Again, Persona 3 I feel like is a bit on the weaker end, and I'm sure Persona 3 fans will hate that, but I'm sorry. There's discourse within the community, you know, which Persona is the best Persona. And as much as I like Persona, I can't tell you the exact reason why people don't talk about 1 and 2 and the Shinigami Tensei games that came before them that spawned Persona. But as far as I know, it's just because they're really dark and much different compared to 3 through 5. I don't know exactly the reason why no one talks about them, but that's the best I can come up with. I never really looked into it because I didn't really care that much.
Yeah. Well, who wants to go next?
I guess I can go next. Well, the Persona games sounded really cool, and like some of those combat moments sound similar to Valkyrie Profile. But I'm not going to talk about that one because that's not as much as I said before. It's not my favorite game, but a lot of my top 10 games are RPGs. But the one that stands on the top because it's one of the most perfect games that I ever played would be specifically Kingdom Hearts 2 above all the other ones, because that one does everything well. It's pretty much Kingdom Hearts 1 perfected. But so it's like the original Kingdom Hearts 2, like before Final Mix, you used to have to play Chain of Memories in order to get like the full story. But in Kingdom Hearts 2, it's kind of in the Final Mix for Kingdom Hearts 2, it was adjusted so you can refight the organization members from Organization 13 again in Kingdom Hearts 2, and not in the card system format, which was really good. Well, no, it's good that they no longer have the card system to refight those bosses.
Full House.
I also hate it.
Yeah, got it.
Well, I don't know if you want me to explain the story of Kingdom Hearts 2, but essentially, the difference of why I like it the most is because it still has the really free-form attack playstyle, whereas you just run around the area and then attack the Heartless, just pretty much button mash to attack. But the difference between the first and second game is the first game only has 8 worlds. So when there is an achievement to beat that game within 8 hours. But in Kingdom Hearts 2, you have twice as many worlds, and you also have to go back to those worlds a second time. Generally, it is a lot shorter adventure the second time, but still going back to fight more boss battles is just great to me. I love the boss battles. But it's a really freeform playstyle. You have summons, you have like limits with Donald and Goofy, so it's just using up a lot of magic and doing a lot of crazy attacks with both of them. And then summons, I don't really use, but they are fun in their own way. So like Chicken Little, Genie, Stitch, all that.
The forgotten Disney character, Chicken Little.
I never use the summons because it uses the same resource as the drive system, which is my favorite. It's like one of the best parts about Kingdom Hearts 2 is just the drives, the valor, the wisdom, the master, the final form, and then the super annoying anti form that you cannot control. But like all those have like their own way of fighting, so it just changes up for as long as it lasts, and it also sacrifices one or both of your allies. But essentially, the whole thing is you're just fighting the darkness with Disney characters. But the cool thing about it is that there's hundreds of the Heartless, and there's also not as many. There's not hundreds of the Nobodies either, which is the new enemy that was introduced in that game. But it's like just fighting black and white creatures. But it's like each one has it's interesting because while you're fighting them, there's like specific moments when they're attacking, but each one has their own specific counter when they're doing an attack. So it can be like they're met like in one instance you're in a sword match with one of them, and then you have to time like an X or circle in your small little menu in the corner to try and instantly kill them, or they'll hit you for heavy damage because you just challenged them to a duel. And then the other ones is just like they're like rolling around the entire arena, just rolling over both the enemies and you and your teammates. And then if you press the action command immediately or time it correctly, you can redirect them so they crash into a wall and they kill themselves. So it's just like really interactive battles. And then the boss fights are just
active combat.
Yeah. But it's like also the other thing is just like the boss battles are just really gigantic and just really cool character designs. So it's just a lot of fun. But like it's also interesting that this is what it does better than a lot of the other ones. The objectives are and storytelling for each of the worlds is so much better in this game because it's actually a lot more creative. And then compared to Kingdom Hearts 3, Sora being there actually makes a difference, and he's actually doing shit. Rather than in Kingdom Hearts 3, he's just exists on the sidelines, which is just really stupid in Kingdom Hearts 3. So you're pretty much just watching the Tangled movie and the Frozen movie from the sidelines in Sora's perspective, and there's literally zero reason for him to be there at all. Compared to Kingdom Hearts 2, where he is actually helping the main character and making a difference and keeping everyone safe.
I have tried watching an overlong YouTube video explaining the story of Kingdom Hearts, and I came out of like this 3-4 hour long video being like, I don't think I know anything more now than I did when I started this. Because I think the biggest thing that hit me, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter that they're all Disney worlds. Like the fact that they are Disney doesn't matter at all. And I'm like, what? I thought that was the whole point. I don't understand. My worldview is shattered.
Yeah, the whole Kingdom Hearts story is like has nothing to do with the Disney characters except for like the parts where the princesses, like the princesses like of pure heart, like they just have like a resource inside of them that makes up the ultimate weapon that is not Disney related. So that's the only part that's like pretty much resolved. So like it no longer matters. It's just like which is what I'm assuming why like Kingdom Hearts 4 is like in like pretty much the real world, because like the pure lights and pure hearts like no longer matter. So I have absolutely no idea where the story is going. Like I played almost every single game. The story still does not make any sense to me. But I just played Kingdom Hearts 2 because like that part of the story is like where it actually ended up making sense to me. After that, it doesn't make any sense anymore. But like the story for Kingdom Hearts 2 is just really sad and really emotional. But it's just good storytelling. Granted, you do have to play the first and second, but if you read like the logs and like the prologue and all that, it'll start to make more sense. Or you could just watch a YouTube video just to explain it if you want.
I have tried like playing the first Kingdom Hearts, and I got lost in Tarzan World, and I just couldn't bring myself to keep going. I was getting really aggravated. I don't really care much for Kingdom Hearts.
Well, no, I completely understand that. Like, I played Kingdom Hearts 2 like above 20 times because that's just how much I love it. And then when I went back to play Kingdom Hearts 1, I realized like, wow, this is not as great as I remember because I played the second one too much. And yes, regardless of how many times I play Kingdom Hearts, I still get lost in the Tarzan world and one because that shit is so annoying because there's no objective, there's no marker. That's what I was going to say before is like Kingdom Hearts 1 does not have like markers or objectives. And if you skip the cutscene, you will have zero idea of where to go. But in Kingdom Hearts 2, it does tell you where to go. It repeatedly gives you like an information bar on top of what you're supposed to be doing right now. Or you can like tell the characters are following. You can ask the character that are following you like what to do. But like that game is just like really open. The worlds are really large. The characters are well voiced. They just have really cool attacks. There's like every single world. Like you can like everywhere you go, you have an attack that you can do with Donald and Goofy, but you can switch out your party with that world's main character. And then also do a super attack with them. So it just keeps like the party fresher. Granted, you can't use some of your powers because you don't have either Donald or Goofy with you, depending on which one you switch out.
You know,
But
I just thought of something like that was like relating to Kingdom Hearts that kind of relates back to JRPG mechanics. Because Kingdom Hearts has a thing where like you don't even control Donald or Goofy, right? Like they are like AI. They just do what they want, right? Outside of like probably some specific circumstances.
Well, well probably in the first one, but in the second one you can adjust their AI control. Like you can tell them how much to spam their attacks, how much to spam their special abilities, and like who to target. Like you can change who if you want them to target a completely different enemy than what Sora's attacking, or to help Sora defeat the single enemy that he is attacking. And you can also adjust how often you want Donald or Goofy to use their magic attack. Like you can adjust specifically each spell that Donald can cast, like in the frequency. Like only like you can spam. You can tell him to spam fire as much as he wants, but you can tell him to only use like the cure spell like when someone is in danger. So you can adjust how they fight, and you can just do whatever you want.
Because it reminds me that like I think it was Final Fantasy Zodiac Age. I think you guys said that was like 14 or something, 12 or 14, something like that.
Yeah,
that has or 12, yeah. It has a very similar thing where it's like because it's not like a turn-based one where you have direct control and you get to tell them what to use on who. And in that Final Fantasy, it had a system where it's like you had two companions, but you had like these tactics slots that you could fill out. That will basically, the gambits. That sounded very similar to what Edwin was just saying, how it works with Donald and Goofy. Because I also remember there was like a meme in Kingdom Hearts where people were just like Donald not healing them when they really needed to heal them.
Yeah.
And I just reminded me of that because I like having direct control over my companions rather than just be like, man, I hope the AI decides to save me instead of just leaving me for dead.
Yeah, because like I didn't really have as much trouble with that meme of like Donald not healing you in Kingdom Hearts 1. But a long time ago in the original copy of Kingdom Hearts, I did have the weirdest moment when I've played Kingdom Hearts where it's like it was like that one moment Donald was not healing me, and I think I was playing on a really hard difficulty. And then I went to the death screen, and then in the darkness, I just heard Goofy yell out my name and then just revive me from the death screen. And it's just like, and he revived me with a potion. I was like, you're not supposed to do that. Are you Jesus? Is Goofy? It just revived me from the game over screen. I was like,
he's like, well,
weird shit.
Like, well, Gorsh, Donald ain't doing his fucking job, Sora, so I have to do everything around here.
Let me into your life, Sora.
Pick it up, baby.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea if that was a glitch or anything. I've never heard anyone say that happened to them either. But in Kingdom Hearts 2, he's definitely like a lot better healer. But also like in compared to the magic system compared to Kingdom Hearts 1. In Kingdom Hearts 1, you have like a set amount of magic, and you can only get it back if you do enough melee damage to fill out a portion of it at a time. But in Kingdom Hearts 2, you can refill it yourself, but if you run out, it automatically goes to a recharge state where it fills it entirely. Granted, there are like skills to make it go down faster, but that depends on which skill tree you unknowingly choose in the beginning when you play through the 2-hour tutorial.
Jesus.
Yeah. That's like the slowest part of the game. Everything else is like go at your own pace. But the first one is like probably one of the saddest stories in the entire series, because like it's like the story with Rox is like everyone's favorite part, because that trio of Rox's, Shion, and Axel is like the saddest shit. But like the fighting in the game is just really freeform. It's really awesome. It goes way overboard in 3, where it's just overwhelming. But in 2, it's just like there's a limit to what you can do, which is still a lot. But like one of the best parts of Kingdom Hearts 2 is again the drive system, where it limits and changes the way Sora fights, where there is risk to which one you choose. Like the very first one is the Valor form, which is Sora goes all red, but he does dual wield Keyblades for the very first time. It was just really awesome to see it for the first time.
Again, anime moment. It's like, this is super impractical, but it looks so cool.
Yeah. But it's like really cool and really quick. But the problem is you cannot use magic in that form at all, because it's all melee. You can only heal with potions, but in the heat of the moment, you're going to be mashing that A button and then start flying everywhere, just swinging your swords around. And then
I always had a problem with people calling them keyblades, because I look at them and I'm like, that's just a giant key. You just beat a motherfucker with it. It's not a sword, it's a club.
It's like some of the Ultimate Blades like actually have like a sword blade on the inside. It's like, oh, yeah. Well, I guess now it's a blade.
Yeah, it's like I see like the iconic like Sora's one, right? It's like what I have in my head when I'm thinking of that. I'm like, this is a giant club. It's like you're just taking a giant
beat that motherfucker with a hunk of steel. Wham!
Yeah, it's a Keyblade, but it also shoots like a laser beam that can instantly kill anything. Yet he only uses it in like the most important moments.
Because he's a nice guy. He wants it to be fair.
I won't ruin this for everyone. I want a good battle. Whereas like those drive forms are fun. Like one of the most interesting ways that I've used it is in the Pirates of the Caribbean one. There's like you fight Barbossa, like in the first movie, he's the main enemy. But
I thought Davy Jones is the enemy in the Kingdom Hearts game.
That's in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like Davy Jones, like you fight on the pirate ship and all that. But in Kingdom Hearts 2, it like goes for the first movie and like the cursed medallions. And
wait, so Pirates was in chest. 2 Kingdom Hearts games? I thought it was only in 1.
No, it only the Pirates of the Caribbean starts off in Kingdom Hearts 2 with Dead Man's Chest, and then it goes into I don't even know which Pirates of the Caribbean in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Pirates of the Caribbean: Return of Johnny Depp. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't really I'm not a big fan of the Pirates areas in Kingdom Hearts, just because of like the art style changes so dramatic from everywhere else.
I remember seeing that's why I thought it was only in 1 game, because I remember when people showed screenshots of it from 3, I was like, whoa. It's like, that looks nutty.
It looks good in Kingdom Hearts 3, but in 1 everything else is darker than Sora, Donald, and Goofy, so they stand out worse than a sore thumb, because like they stand out like the fucking sun on a really dark day.
Like I remember,
this is really funny to see. But like the thing about the Barbossa fight is that when you do enough damage to him, he summons a special Heartless that, because of the Dead Man's curse, when it's night, he's invincible. But when the moon shines, he goes into a skeletal form, and that's when you can hit him. But the way that I beat him without him ever making himself invincible is that I went into the Valor form and juggled his ass in the air until he died. So he never went into his immortal form. So it's like, all right, well, that was an interesting fight. But it's like crap like that you can do like all around the game, and it gets better as you get the higher drive form, because on the higher drive forms, you can use melee, and you can just swing around normal. You can just swing around like in the same way as the Valor form. But then also your magic goes apeshit, and then you could just burn everything in the entire room or zap everything to death. So it's just like it gets really interesting, and the fights go faster, but it's just a lot more entertaining because you're just wrecking everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the game does get harder later on because with the final mix, it adds more stuff to it. So it's like you got like all the mini games, mainly from Pooh Bear, and then that shit aerial world usually. But then there's like a bunch of other worlds that you can just do so much stuff in and explore and get all the chests and obviously make the ultimate blade.
I wonder if they made the fucking Winnie the Pooh world just like all mini games because like we can't have Pooh fighting people. Come on, he's not gonna want to do that.
He's like, square up.
Look, it's like a 180, right? It's like some heartless show up and then bear, like Pooh just turns like feral bear and he's just fucking mauls one to death.
Well, the Pooh Bear. The Pooh Bear mini games in Kingdom Hearts 2 are significantly better than in 1. The first game was just boring as shit, Pooh Bear Land. But the second one is just like the mini games are just better.
So were you happy when Sora came to Smash, him being the last DLC character?
Yes, I was so freaking happy. Yay! I didn't know that so many people. I didn't know that so many people wanted him in Smash. I thought it was just me, but like when
it was a meme.
When Mario unknowingly threw the Keyblade, I'm like, oh my god! It's just like I didn't think this was possible.
I felt like I had the opposite reaction to a lot of people as soon as I saw the Keyblade. I was like, oh no, why? Why? Because I'm more into Smash, and so I knew people did want Sora. Again, it was just like one of those things that I never. I mean, as soon as the Joker was the first DLC character, I should have never said never at that point. But it was like, oh, Disney's never gonna let that fly. I guess they let that fly.
Well, I said Sora before, but anytime I mentioned it, everyone kept saying it was like not another sword fighter. But it's like if you
he wouldn't be a sword fighter though. He has magic and shit.
Well, it's like they made him a lot different than what I actually initially expected, but it's like in a better way. But the interesting thing about playing with sword fighters in Smash Brothers is that their swords actually clash, and then it stops both their attacks. So it just makes for an interesting fight rather than just using sword to fist, where like your punch, if it actually goes through past the sword, which is just weird.
It just happens more often with swords, but that's just a mechanic that's even with fists. It just happens less often with fists because the swords have a more consistent like hitbox across the games. But like if Donkey Kong and Bowser like punched each other at the same time, it would do the same thing where like the attacks just cancel out each other. It just seems to happen more often with swords is all.
Okay. Well, I said Sora. I was like, oh, Sora's a fighter. It's just like, well, we already got a bunch of fighters. Like, yeah, but at least it's not fucking Fire Emblem. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, could have been another Fire Emblem character.
Hey, I'm gonna defend that because, well, I'll admit, like fucking Marth, Lucina, and Roy were basically all the same thing. I like, honest to God, most of the Fire Emblem characters had different kind of movesets, all right? Especially like Corrin and Byleth and shit. They felt legitimately different.
Yeah, it's like now at least. I don't know what her name was. What, Blith? I just say Blith.
Bailiff, yeah.
Blith. At least hers is different because she has like 4 different weapons.
Yeah,
but it was still annoying to see another Fire Emblem. But it was like I'll admit it was like at least she's different compared to everyone else because literally it's like not even shadows, they're just straight fucking copies.
I got too much of my. Someone had to get something else because my wish list was fulfilled all except for Shantae, and I got a lot more shit that I thought was less possible in Shantae being in Smash. Because as soon as it was like I get Joker, didn't even realize I wanted it. I got Banjo, which I've been begging for years, and then I was like, man, it'd be really cool if they put Pyra and Mithra in Smash, but they didn't include Rex. It was just them two, and Sakurai's like, bet. I got you.
I think it's pretty crazy. Just it's such a cool roster of characters. Like just seeing Cloud and like Kazuya like show up.
Yeah, Kazuya.
Like, what the hell are these? Like, okay, I guess. Like, let's do it.
And Sephiroth is like a big deal. Like I feel like Sephiroth got a way more attention than a lot of the DLC fighters in that did because he got the whole like little mini game they added for how fast you could beat like Super Sephiroth or whatever the fuck. Like none of the other characters had that kind of like fanfare, even more so than like Sora.
I mean, his freaking reveal trailer was ridiculous.
Yeah. He's
he's
fucking
pretty awesome.
he killed Luigi.
We freaking
Yeah.
sliced Gleam in half, like at the
Mhm.
very start, as like and like the very beginning of a plot of the story mode in Ultimate is just like, oh, well, Sephiroth just one shot the main enemy, and it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, that's his reveal trailer.
Yeah.
That's how powerful he is. Well, like, yeah, I was like, well, and he does not disappoint as you fight him also in Kingdom Hearts 2. You
I was gonna
fight him in
say,
1
that's
and 2.
definitely
So, like, but his
and
fight in 2 is like it's still a lot crazier than in 1 because it goes back to like it's like a lot more freeform fighting than in 1. One's like a lot more more streamlined. You still have similar abilities, but it's still not. It's slower than
Mhm.
in 2. So like even Sephiroth is faster, but his arena is much bigger. So like he does a lot crazier shit. And then eventually during his fight, if you have the right abilities, it ends up being a fight in the air, and it's sort of pretty much just like who can stay in the air the longest before
Dragon Ball
you
Z ass
do
fight.
yeah before you
Yeah.
do enough damage to knock whoever out down to the ground. But
Mhm.
Sephiroth never freaking lets up, and he still does that erase your magic and send you to 1 HP. But immediately he follows up with an attack to kill you, and if you miss that action command, he kills you right then and there. It's like nothing's gonna save you.
Mhm.
But it's like stuff like that is like it's there's like some parts that will kill you easily either by being overwhelmed or by underestimating the boss that you're fighting, because there is like another section in the game that it gives you significantly too early to go through. You can't even go through the whole thing, but it's like the thing that was added to the final mix version, which is like the just an upgraded version. Whereas
Mhm.
like it's called the Cave of Remembrance. So going back to the drive, when the drive forms, so as you level up the drive forms, there's a specific ability with each of them that as you level up, it goes into the base form of Sora. So when you get those abilities, you can go through the cavern and go deeper to fight stronger enemies and get power-ups. But eventually, at the very end of it, you go into this one giant boss rush of just every single main enemy. Like the story wise, not like the Disney World enemies, but like the Organization 13. You fight every single one of them in a freaking gauntlet, and they're all souped up to the highest level in the game. So it's just like
Mhm.
there's that whole game has so many bosses and just so many more things to do than in the first one. So it's like it'll easily take you like around 80 hours to actually do everything or more, depending on if you're familiar with it at all. But like I've played it a lot and it still takes me a significant amount of time to actually finish everything. But that's still one of my favorite games, and I'll play that game for the rest of my life because that's just how fun it is for me.
Maybe I'll try Kingdom Hearts 2 instead, and maybe if I vibe with that one a bit more. Sounds
Yeah,
like one of those ones where it's like the sequel is significantly better, kind of like Titanfall. Titanfall 1 sucks, Titanfall 2 is amazing.
yeah. I'll say this: if you do choose to play Kingdom Hearts 2 and you still don't like it, then don't bother playing any of the other ones because
Well,
they don't
already
match up at all.
As I already you're saying, I already know about Kingdom Hearts 3 at least. That was a bit more in my face when it came out, so I know more about that, and I wasn't very interested. But other than it was, I liked seeing like the Monsters Inc. and the Toy Story worlds and shit. But other than that,
Yeah, it was like if you can play it long enough to get past the 2-hour tutorial as Roxas, then you're good to go
Ouch.
for the rest of the game. Because that's
Yeah.
pretty much the only that's pretty much the slowest part of the whole game and the Pooh Bear world, but that's always optional.
mm-hmm.
But that's my favorite game.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan.
All right, that's a lot. So I'm gonna just go with mine. The one that I really enjoyed quite a bit, and it's been very close to me. And obviously, a lot of people would probably be looking at me with like, "Why?" Final Fantasy X. That was probably the closest one to me. I really did enjoy the storyline of it, also the character design. Obviously, I could have really done without the voice actor for Titus. It was a really annoying voice, but I guess if you get past all that, it kind of does well. It was really cool to me to know that the style and how they were doing the battles were pretty nice. I mean, you had everybody with a weird type of leveling up system at first. It was kind of intimidating to look at first because it was called a sphere grid. So how you would be able to level up was basically going through this huge, massive map of grids, and where you would be able to rotate and move them around to be able to acquire more HP, more MP, acquire a new spell, new attack move. You'd be going through these rotation grids to be able to get yourself to make your moves and leveling up. The other thing that I really did appreciate was the design. Again, with the Aeons, that was where you'd be calling the summons. These guys here, like your Ifrit, your Bahamut, all those different types of summons that they had were really cool in how they had it designed. Bahamut looked really sick. Basically, when they would when Yuna, the summoner, this lady, she'd be summoning, and it would have a really cool cutscene where they would basically be, hey, it's me, I'm here. But how they would have themselves get involved was basically that they would pretty much tell the group, okay, step aside, I got this. And you were basically now using the summon to do the attacking rather than they were just running around like an AI. You were controlling their attacks, and obviously after a significant amount of attacks, whether it be dealt to your character or you onto the enemy, you would build a gauge and you'd get your own limit break for, which is a special for your summon. And then they would again have another really cool cutscene. Like Ifrit would basically grab the character, the enemy, throw him into the sky, grab a huge chunk of earth, chuck it at the enemy, and then blast a giant ball of fire and basically like a nuke and just destroys them. And then you have Bahamut. He was even cool. His was way more cool because he would literally lock his claws front and back into the ground because he knew this blast was going to take a significant amount of pressure on him and he would have to lock himself in place. And he'd have this giant spinning gear on his back start rotating, and then he would just start building up this blast in his mouth, and then he would let it go and it'd just wipe out this whole area. So it was really cool. So it was just like all those different types of designs that they had for the summons was really cool. Now, the story itself, very in depth, very difficult, kind of like if you were me at the time. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember watching Corey play it, and it just did not make any sense when he tried to explain it to me, because it was just like, hey, there's this guy, Titus, he's a very famous blitzball character in this game. There's a blitzball team called the Xanarkin Abes. 1,000 years ago, how there was a famous blitzball guy, and don't even ask me if the blitzball game, very painful to play. There is actually a spot in the game where you have to play it. Now you don't have to win it, but there is the only way you're able to get Waka's final weapon is by beating the championship in blitzball, and it's very painful. Literally, it's like underwater. I don't know how you explain it. It's like underwater, like freaking
soccer,
like
football.
Soccer, yeah, like a rugby kind of soccer thing. You're kicking it underwater. I don't know how the hell you can produce that much force for it to go really fast across water, and people catching it. And they're swimming, trying to get it to the other person's. Yeah,
physics.
Yeah,
physics logics here.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, that's weird. But basically how it starts off is you see this guy, he's really famous, he's on this place called Xanarkin, enjoying themselves this giant blitzball game, which is funny to me that they actually had an actual professional rock group do the background music for this, because if you actually watch the intro of it, it's pretty intense. So they're enjoying this crazy blitzball game, and then all of a sudden you just start seeing this one guy walking across this water named Aaron, and he starts seeing all these types of things start floating up in the air. Water starts turning into these little pebbles flying into the air, and you're like, what the hell's going on? You start to notice that there is this giant blast heading towards that area, and as Titus is ready to hit the final kick to score the game, he notices this giant blast going through and just destroying everything, killing everybody. Everybody's dying. And you're just like, what the hell is going on? And so basically he's trying to get through, to get out of there, basically. He meets Aaron. He does no idea who this guy is. He hands him a weapon and tells him basically this is a gift from Jecht, and that's where he's talking about his dad. But he has no idea really what's going on until basically they're basically ready to fall. He gets captured. He gets thrown into this monster called Sin. This is the one that actually destroyed that whole entire city. And you find out that this guy is actually his old man, his father, Jecht. And so it just gets very difficult to go through the whole story of it. You go through this area where you basically meet Waka. He's the guy that wants to be the famous blitzball player. They haven't won shit in 23 years, so they just suck ass until you get him on your team, and hopefully he shows them this special kick, and they're like, wow, this guy must be good. So they start wearing him over, and through that whole idea, you end up running across a summoner by the name of Yuna. And this is where you start getting introduced to those summons. You start getting all these different types of summons along the way, and finding out that this person has a guardian, if you will, a protector by the name of Kimari. And this is this giant blue tiger looking dude. And I don't know, for me personally, I've always been into those kind of creatures. You look at Final Fantasy VII, I was into Red 13. Final Fantasy X, I'm into this giant cat-looking dude. I really don't think it did him well, because basically he's kind of like the weakest person in the group. I mean, he learns enemy skills and shit, but it's just, he looks cool, but he's like a dog with more bark than bite, and you're just like, okay. But you're going through all these different stories as you're getting through along the line. You're finding out that she's on this pilgrimage trying to defeat Sin, where she runs into this weird guy. This is where we talk about the types of weird designs for characters. Like, literally the guy is named Seymour. And if you look at the guy's clothing and his hair, you just wonder how much gel does he have to keep that shit up, because it just looks ridiculous.
Does he have like Sonic hair?
He has...
He's like these antennas.
Yeah.
Like, almost...
Yeah, they're blue hair, but they're like antennas split apart. They look like pigtails, but they are just, I don't know how it works. It just,
a mix between a cockroach and a Super Saiyan 3.
Yeah, it's very weird, but he's another summoner kind of guy himself, a little bit. He himself is on the same wave, trying to do, basically he's a part of this Guado, a group of people, a leader, if you will, and is trying to get really close with Yuna, which is the summoner. And Titus, as you're going through the story, ends up falling for her. They end up getting this really close relationship, and then finding out this guy's trying to basically create that gap in the middle by basically saying, hey, I want to marry Yuna, even though I know you're trying to get with her. Let me just throw in that hand and let me see what happens. And basically trying to tell her that he's trying to win it over to help get this thing over with, where they're trying to be together. But finding out that this dude is actually a piece of shit. He killed his own father to take over, to be in power of this alliance, if you will, and is basically trying to become Sin himself by eradicating all life, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to harness the power of Sin to eradicate all life, to stop the suffering in his own way. This is how you're dealing with another group by the name of the Albed, which is a character by the name of Riku that we had spoke of in the previous podcast episodes of the X3, X2, or whatever. And she is a part of this group that uses a forbidden type of technology called the Machina. And it's something that people have basically blamed for the reason why Sin was created, because of the fact of technology and all this crazy stuff, basically wiping out everything, which is kind of nice to me, because it kind of makes you understand a little bit of like how Udon was talking about that hunky-dory cowboy town kind of thing going back with Final Fantasy VII. Well, in this one it kind of made sense, because the Sin is basically wiping out parts of the globe of Spira, the world, and the only way that you can do it is by creating the final summon, and that's what Yuna is doing. She's doing this pilgrimage to get the final summon, which is going to basically stop temporarily the time of sin for him having to wipe out the entire world. So it basically stops him in motion. They create a new sin, because once they have created the final Aeon, that becomes the new sin, basically, with the person that's being assigned to it. And once they are reborn, they again restart the life cycle again, where sin comes back. Now, it happens at randomly on the type of years, but apparently if you're looking at the timeline of now, Sin had just came back after 10 years of being destroyed from the last one, which was her father.
That seems really short. So it's like every 10 years you gotta.
Well,
anticipate a calamity.
it's not, because if you look at the timeline from Unalesca, which was way back in the time, it was like 600 years or so, because it's actually 1,000 years from that one story of Titus, and that's again where I was getting to the point where it gets very confusing, because you're like, okay, they're trying to figure out why is this guy Titus is talking about Xanarkin, the Xanarkin Abe's Blitzball team, when this was 1,000 years ago. So they're like, this guy obviously is crazy, because he must have gotten Sin's toxic and created some sort of amnesia. The guy isn't thinking well. So they're just like, okay, the thing that you're talking about is this old type of history that has not happened for 1,000 years. While you guys have been doing this Blitzball thing, we've been actually just dealing with this fucking crazy creature by the name of Sin that just wipes out people. And you see in bits and parts of cutscenes throughout the throughout the game, where it's pretty sad. Like, literally, there is a place where they go to visit, and because they're like, oh, look, there's Sin, I'm going to shoot it in the back with a harpoon, pisses it off, and then it wipes out an entire village, and you just see all these people running, and they look like your typical, like, people that don't have any technology. Everything's made out of wood. They got these villages instead. He shoots his giant beam, misses the boat, and destroys the village and just kills all these people. And you're like, oh, fuck. It's just like crazy shit going along the way. So there's a lot of people getting murdered.
Do that.
Yeah. And so once they find out that this guy named Seymour is a complete douche, they're like, okay, not only is he a douche, but he is a dead douche that needs to be what you call sending. And that's when there is a type of people that have died, but basically have not moved on, kind of, like your haunted ghost kind of thing. So she's trying... Limbo. Yeah, basically. So she's trying to send this guy, like saying, okay, you're evil as shit. We need to get rid of you. I'm going to try to send you. He doesn't like that, obviously. So he starts fighting back. And then this is where you get with the story about Corey talking about you fight this dickhead that's like throwing missiles at you because he's already dead. So you fight multiple forms of this guy throughout the game. And he's just constantly being a pain in your ass. And he's just something you have to fight with, dealing until you get through basically to the end of the game. And doing so, you see this really cool summon that he has, because again, like I said, he's like a summoner himself. He uses a very powerful summon by the name of, I don't know how you pronounce it, Anima or Anima, I don't remember. What you find out is his actual mother. And it's twisted, because if you see this creature, it looks like a fucking monster that came out of Silent Hill, but it's crazy because it's extremely powerful. You can actually get it. And then that's again where you jump into the whole, you wish you had your strategy guides back then, because some of these characters you have to get are weird. They have some really cool ones. They got the Mega Sisters, you got Yojimbo, you got Anima.
I got your mother.
Yeah, exactly. But you're going throughout and you're collecting all these summons as you go along the way, and that's when you start, like how we say the anime-ish style of things of how JRPGs work is build the friendship, and that's basically where all these people come together basically to try to stop something by basically an old style of how they would basically do it, which is again can perform the pilgrimage, get to Unalesca, which was the lady that would basically harness the power of your summons and turn it into the final Aeon to defeat temporarily Sin. But they themselves, well, Titus himself, believes that they can go out about a different way. He doesn't want Una to die because he finds out the summoner, once they perform the final Aeon, will die. He falls in love with her. He doesn't want this to happen, so he finds out this is a different way we're going to approach this. So they go to Unalesca after they're ready to start this final summoning. He finds out this is not the right way and knows that Aaron is actually another person that has not been sended. He's one that got killed by Unalesca and did not himself like the idea that this was a way of doing things. So they were themselves took it upon themselves to say, we're going to fix this. We're going to do it a different way. We're going to actually kill sin permanently. We're not doing this final Aeon bullshit. We're going to do it our way. And so you fight Unalesca, which turns into a weird-looking Medusa-looking thing, fucking comes out of the ground. You're like, what the fuck? More of these designs that come along the way. And you basically go against the already established way of how they do things to finally kill off the father, Jekt, who was Sin. And then, again, this is where it gets confusing. Okay, what happened about this 1,000-year deal of Titus? Well, this is actually basically a world of dreams that has been created by Sin to keep all of the harness of memories that happened when they had all died back in the day. Bahamut is actually a kid that you see throughout the game who's basically telling you that he's sick of having to constantly repeat life of how it is because they've been dead for years, they're tired of this, and they want it to be over, and wants Titus to kill them off, but knowing that if he does kill Sin permanently, all of the dreams, which they're basically faith or whatever, will no longer exist. So if he is to do this and kill Sin, he himself will be gone because he himself is just a dream. So he ends up killing Sin, his father, and then that's when you finally find himself basically disappearing, jumping off into the distance after he basically says his farewell with Yuna and becomes no longer existent. Now, I don't know what happens in X2 because I didn't play that game, but if I recall seeing, for somehow weird reason, he comes back. I don't fucking know how that worked out, but anyways, it was pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. Anime, that's the story. But the voice acting in the characters, the cut scenes, the designs, except for Titus's clothing. You look at clothing of his design, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like we've all said, design is just how it appeals to people's eyes. He has shorts with a long pair of legs kind of thing, and the other looks like a whisker basket on his other leg. Don't know exactly how that came.
Do you mean wicker?
Wicker, yeah, wicker basket. Sorry.
Okay, what the fuck is a whisker basket?
Yeah, whisker basket. Wicker.
I was
basket.
about to just take that as 100%. That must be what it is. Since that sounds like a very specific thing you said.
Yeah,
honestly, this sounds like some horrible animal cruelty item or something. Like, holy shit!
Get him with the whisker basket.
But besides the confusing story of it all, I really did appreciate the style of how they were doing the designs, the action, everything. Again, if you guys go into YouTube and you watch the cutscenes, they may not be as great as they are now with looking at Final Fantasy Rebirth and such, but they hold up pretty damn well to this day. Looking at how old that game is, it's pretty amazing the amount of time and graphics they put into the game. So that to me is probably the reason why Final Fantasy X was so important to me. So
I do wonder how long the video is for all the cutscenes, because I know for Kingdom Hearts 2 is like 8.5 hours or something like that.
I don't think there was that much cutscenes. I know there was some, but I don't believe there was entirely a whole bunch. And if it was, they were actually quite short.
I don't believe you.
Final Fantasy X. Yeah, it's a
well,
really long.
Well, if you do the Una Titus love each other and then fucking defy physics in underwater and shit, then that takes a while because you have to listen to this fucking long song rant going on while they're just floating around and shit. And you're like, okay, what the fuck?
It's romantic.
Skip? Where's the skip button?
I remember seeing the trailer for that game on
Jesus
Toonami.
Christ, it's 13 hours.
No way.
You just looked it up.
Yeah, no
That's why I said I don't believe you.
That's included with gameplay. I'm talking about just cutscenes. 13 hours.
I don't know.
Kingdom Hearts 2, all cutscenes is 13 hours, not 8.
Oh. Yeah, I remember seeing Final Fantasy X's trailer on Toonami, and that was it was paired with, I think, the Xanarkin theme, and it was just showcasing and Final Fantasy has always been one of those benchmark games for the graphics of the console that it's on, and it was so just visually stunning. My dad saw the trailer too, and he was like, when can we buy that? It's like we don't even know what it's about, really. It's just like it looks so cool that it's like, oh, I have to have that. That game has to be good. It looks so good.
And they really liked it. And they put, say, on the back. Yeah, and remember they put on the back of that case, it says, with voice acting. Because that was like the beginning of when they basically had voice acting. So they advertised the shit out of that in the back of the cover. I still remember that. Corey's like, oh, wow, it says that they have voice acting.
Also, Final Fantasy X cutscene is 9.5 hours.
Yeah, I don't know. To look at that.
I literally just looked it up. You don't believe me?
Yeah, I know. I'm not watching it to see if that's really actually the case. But anyways, that was so cool. The remake kind of not remake. Yeah, kind of remake. I guess maybe I don't know. They basically just add some more pain in the ass creatures that just piss you off, kind of like that Ruby Weapon deal, where you just come across a dark Ifrit or a dark something summon you have to fight, and they're just beyond impossible to beat. And you just don't know why that they made that, but. I guess there were people there that just couldn't have enough. So
now people like a challenge.
Yeah, well, they'll definitely get one. Those guys fucking suck. They will. They'll get that. So do we want to go ahead and jump into some trivia?
I think so. Yeah.
Alrighty, it's trivia time. All right, let's go ahead and jump in the first question. So, in Persona 5, what is the name of the palace that is made of everyone's hearts? Is it A, Abyss, B, Mementos, C, Futaba, or D, Lobos?
B, Mementos.
I'm going to agree with Keith.
Yeah, same.
The answer was B, Mementos. Mementos.
I didn't fail.
This is the distorted realm, teeming with shadows, the physical embodiment of the desires of the human heart.
Is it always the same palace, or is it different in each game?
So that's a whole different thing. So pretty much the short version of this is that people with particularly distorted desires spawn their own palace, and that is the levels you go through, while Mementos is basically humanity's collective unconscious. It's not an individual. That's like a huge palace, essentially. That's vague and undefined as opposed to an individual's one.
Jeez.
So it's like making a palace of your own, shutting yourself out of society.
Not necessarily being a shut-in, even though ironically that is one of the palaces you do, is helping one of your teammates become not a shun-in, which is one of the choices, which was kind of funny. You said Futaba, that's just one of the characters' names. But essentially it's like the coach person. It's like his distorted desire was being cruel to the male students and too pushy and sexual towards the female ones. And then there's another one who's an artist who steals his apprentice's work essentially and sells it off as his own. Like people with distorted desires, usually evil intentions, but also can be lethargic, like you just said. It can spawn from being like a suicidal shun-in, essentially. It can spawn one. It's like particularly strong, either aggressive or depressive kind of emotions can spawn a palace, essentially.
And I saw in this, because I saw in that too, it was talking about the palaces by the name of basically looked like by the regular sins, basically like lust and greed and all that stuff that were powerful.
Yeah, they can be vaguely associated with that, yeah.
Alrighty, so question 2. In Pokemon Gold and Silver, what day does the Clefairy do the Clefairy dance? Is it A,
Sunday.
Monday night, B, Wednesday night, C, Friday night, or D, Saturday night?
Hey.
Fuck, I thought it was going to be like a phase of the
It's either Friday or Monday. I've known this at some point.
I think it's Monday, because it's more like Moon Day.
I'll go Friday.
Please inform me of your scientific process to break.
All I know is it's on the full moon. I just don't know what day that is.
I thought it was Sunday. That's why I almost said Sunday at first, but fuck.
All right. So
yeah, I'll say Monday. Fuck it.
All right. The answer is Mondays. You go to the souvenir shop in Mount Moon. Beside the house is a closed area. This is where the Clefairy dance takes place. Yeah.
Freaking alien Pokemon.
So
that's a thing you would see in the guidebook. That's another thing. I have the original Gold and Silver guidebook somewhere, and I had to I used it so much it fell apart, like the binding fell off, and I had to rebind all the pages together in this horrible folder format, but I still have it.
Nice.
Nice. So in question 3, in Xenoblade 2 Chronicles, what is Pyra's favorite drink? Is it A, frozen Odifa, B, Indoline tea, C, Geronlisol tea, or D, lentil milkshake?
Pass.
Lentil milkshake. Probably not that one.
The
Tea?
answer... There's two different... Yeah. The answer was C, Generosal tea. They can be purchased at the Vargal Tavern, run by Gardi in the Kingdom of Ura's Garfront Village. It is one of Pyra's favorite pouch items.
Yeah, that stupid fucking pouch system that I constantly had to keep track of. Why were you targeting me for all 3 of these? I passed 2.
I was trying to look for different ones, and this time a Persona, Xenoblade was one, and I was like, I can't fucking find anything else. Oh, Pokemon Gold and Silver.
Whose was lentil milkshake then? I said D because that fucking pot must have been Nia's or something. It was some other character's favorite drink, because that's the one that when you said that, I'm like, oh, that's it, but it's someone else's because I just remembered that.
I didn't fucking know enough about it. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll grab one of these.
It's just a stupid system where you buy a thing and it's like give it to your fucking partner and they have like a 10-hour buff or some stupid bullshit like that. I don't know. It was just another system tacked on to all the other 11 other systems they have.
Jesus.
Hey, this is Corey, and thanks for checking out Mediocre Rumble Brothers. If you liked the video, please drop a like, and if you didn't, that's fine too. If you'd like us to talk about any specific games, drop a comment below, or feel free to discuss your experience with the games that we've mentioned in the episode. You can also listen to our episodes prior to YouTube on our Spotify. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.